The Ryan Russillo Show is presented by DraftKings. Coming up on the show, we go deep into the college football. I got my top 12, and more importantly, 1 hour with Joel Klatt, where we go over the Big Ten. Do they have the three best teams in college football? The SEC contenders, some love for Texas Tech. We try to fix the sport. We get mad about Lane and the Miami Notre Dame debate. Some NFL stuff. I think it's the Bills' time. They just might not be as good as they usually are. If you look at the AFC playoff scenarios right now, the Bills have to get through this group, don't they? Our problem with new when it comes to new teams, and it's just a really long pod today. We did life advice, sort of. One touchdown can change everything. The crowd, the momentum, the game itself. It never gets old. How about Ty Simpson's touchdown for Alabama? 4th down. I still can't believe they did it. We're going to ask Joel Klatt about that one. That changed some things out of Toomer's Corner. I've been there. I've been there for the Iron Bowl. Never know what to expect. I, at that point of the game, probably didn't expect Alabama to score a touchdown. And they did. And they won. And their playoff hopes are alive. Feel that same rush with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, where every touchdown could bring you closer to cashing in with DraftKings Sportsbook. All the action's in your hands. First touchdown, anytime touchdown. Live bets, every play, every snap, every game matters. Missouri listeners, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in the Show Me State. Here's the best part. New customers bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets instantly. When your team hits the end zone, you could hit the payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code RYEN. That's RYEN, Ryan. Bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Chill.
Buy now and get the Russillo hoodie free. Call 1-800.
European theater.
The week is the Oregon Duck.
We need a big push here.
I want to start talking about week 13 in a different way here because we may have to buckle up for some newness. New is difficult in sports. Whenever it's a new team that's never done anything before, I'll admit, I sometimes I just have a problem with it. That's why I was so proud of 10 years ago, the print the shirts quote, because the Warriors were new. And they get down to Memphis 2-1 in the series, and people are like, yep, here we go. You know, Memphis is just too tough for them. This style won't translate to postseason success. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, I think they're awesome. I think they're going to win the whole thing. Print the shirts. So I don't know that I have any print the shirt slogans for, especially when you look at this AFC group, because when you think about new with players, we're way different with newness and players. Like the excuses you'll make for a new quarterback because you just hope it works out. Same thing happens with NBA draft picks. Like the benefit of the doubt that you'll give anybody. Be like, man, Jerome Moiso looks really athletic though. So we do this all the time with players, but we don't do the same thing with teams. At least I know that I don't. And so when you wake up today and you look at the Bears being the number 1 seed in the NFC, you're like, this is a nice story, but really the Bears? And then depending on what happens tonight with the Patriots, and of course that Denver game last night, overtime in Washington, I mean, there's a scenario where the number 1 seeds in both conferences are the Bears and the Pats. And we're like 2/3 of the way through the season. Like, is this really happening? Of course, Denver wins a close one in Washington because that's all they ever do is just win every single close game. But I don't think it's a knock on the Broncos to go, I don't think anybody be afraid of that team in the playoffs. So it got me to thinking about the Buffalo Bills. And really what I want to talk about here is if you think back historically, the Bills' problems has been one guy. It's Patrick Mahomes, who's beat them 4 of the last 5 years in the playoffs, the other year being that Burrow season. KC's lost to Dallas after being excited about them saving their season against the Colts. Dallas, by the way, how about this team? Put together a nice run. I mean, maybe it's just their nice run, but when you think about where they were defensively when they played the Bears, where it felt like the Bears could have scored 50 in the beginning of the season, their defense isn't good now, but at least in the last 3, it's 19th. It's the number 1 offense in the league. They were 29th in defense at one point. But after that win by Dallas, again, Kansas City's loss, Kansas City's playoff odds, depending on which simulator you want to look at, let's just put it in the mid-30s. I've got 36%. Chiefs have a 36% chance of making the playoffs. So they may not be around. And as I'm watching the Bills score 3 points in the first half against the Steelers team that, you know, they're just not that good. And you're like, what? It's like, are you guys? And then I'm starting to sit, I'm like, are the Bills not good? In the game that we do every single week with this league. So they're down 7-3 at the half. And I'm like, well, maybe the Bills aren't good. They lost to Miami. They lost to Atlanta. They scored 27 points combined against those teams. Yes, I know Miami's a little bit better now. We'll probably get to that. The loss at Houston doesn't mean anything now. Houston's really good. They're the best defense in the league. They're 4-2 at home. They've got Stroud back. Another fun exercise is like, look at Stroud's numbers this year and look back to his rookie year. But we just never, and granted, he missed time this year, but like Stroud's a complete afterthought. And he might be the exact same guy from his rookie year. But because Stroud was new, it was like, man, this guy can do anything. Because that's just not supposed to happen in this league very often, even though it's starting to feel like that with younger quarterbacks all over the place. That's another topic, maybe a Wednesday monologue. So, you've got Houston picking things up. They beat the Colts yesterday. Maybe the Colts are falling apart, or maybe it's just better competition. They're 2 games through the roughest 4-game stretch of the entire year. But as the Bills come out at halftime, I'm like, they have 3 points. Do they not realize what's happening in the AFC around them? Well, first play, Bosa kills Rodgers. Rodgers has got blood coming down his nose. I actually felt bad for Rodgers. The way I used to, like when I was a little kid and I'd see a heavyweight get his ass kicked, and somehow I'd just always feel bad for the fighter that just got killed. And then Rodgers said in the postgame that it was kind of the receiver's fault. Although, look, if the receivers aren't showing up to team meetings and they're not watching film and they're running the wrong routes, he would know better than I would. I guess there was just a bit of a tone, and then watching Rodgers struggle all season, I was like, is it really all on these other guys? However, they turned the game around on that play. They score the rest of the second half. And so the Bills win this game, and I'm going, this is really setting up great for Buffalo. You've got Baltimore, who was out of the playoffs until Pittsburgh lost that game, and now they're leading the division. Baltimore feels like they're going to win the division. They've got 2 more here against the Steelers. I don't think anybody likes the Steelers. You've got the Kansas City numbers that we've already run through. And so if you're the Bills, you're looking at a group of Denver, New England, Jacksonville, who won again and destroyed a Chargers team that I don't know that anybody necessarily likes. And they won yesterday. And now this Colts team. So that's 5 teams there that are standing in front of the Bills and getting to the Super Bowl. Like, well, why would I pick any of those teams against the Bills? So all of this newness, where you could have Burrow, likely, Mahomes, maybe, and Lamar, who may be in the playoffs, but these guys could be watching. Lamar's his own topic. He doesn't run the football anymore, at least not the way that he used to or the way we're accustomed to. If you look at his career numbers, 60 yards per game on average that he would run the football throughout his career. He's at 29 yards per game this season, his lowest yards per carry since his rookie year, 1 rushing touchdown. Look, he's had 1 run of 19 yards. That's his longest run of the season. And he's actually off target more on his throws than at any point in his career. So whether it's the injury stuff with Lamar, Mahomes feeling like he can't save this team, all of these other quarterbacks that Josh Allen is far superior. So the quarterbacks on his level, when you start the season, you're doing your pre-season work and going, all right, who's in Josh Allen's way? Who are his contemporaries? None of those teams feel like any kind of threat at all. So Buffalo's the 7 seed, and it feels like this sets up better for Buffalo than any of these years for them entering the playoffs. The only problem is this is probably the worst Buffalo team since the 2020 team if you look at the defensive numbers. Because when you run through 21 through up and through last season, in where they were points for, points against, just an elite team that couldn't beat Kansas City. They have Allen. The defense isn't as good. So even though it sets up because of all these new entries that we could have in the AFC playoff picture, teams that I don't think anyone nationally is like, oh no, like you have to go to Jacksonville. How are you going to beat Bo Nix? Is it really New England and Drake May, or is it the schedule? I mean, May's been incredible, right? So I may want to pick Allen and the Bills to get through this if they end up being in the playoffs. It'd just be nice if Buffalo was a lot better like they've been the previous 4 years. Best win of the season? When we did the seeding thing with Big Cat, we were like, all right, let's do NFL seeding college football style. He gave Denver the 1 seed. I didn't even have him in it. because of their win at Philadelphia. The Bears' win at Philadelphia was even more impressive. The Bears ran for more yards against a Vic Fangio defense than any team has since 2005. I do wonder sometimes how, I don't think I'm the only person that does this, but how we all talk about the Eagles defense, and that, do I think they're awesome because I think all of the guys were awesome in college? Probably. Now, do I think they still have enough talent to be a real factor? Yeah, I do. I mean, it's a lot of the guys from last year that just won a Super Bowl. So I don't think it's smart to just go, yeah, it's a completely overrated unit. I just can't believe the Bears were going to beat Philadelphia at their place. I didn't think it was going to be gashing them for almost 300 yards on the ground. And even when I think about, like, could I possibly think all the Georgia guys are overrated? Like, Jalen Carter got caught by Caleb Williams on the hard count. And then I think Carter was so mad that he just blew up everything and killed the running back on the next play. I was like, all right, there he is. We're good. So I really think that that's the best win maybe of the entire season, considering what we're asking ourselves is like who the Bears actually are. Because there's a lot of Bears stuff that you could dig into. They're running the ball great. The offensive line seems to be getting better. They're somehow keeping this defense going. It's not as good as it was last year with all their injuries. You know, they're missing their best corner as one of the best players in the league. But I really think it was that kind of a statement where I'm going, what is even possible for this team? But again, it's new. Chicago's new. Is anyone going to pick them? If they're the 1 seed, is anyone picking that team to represent the NFC? Green Bay, who everybody likes again. Jordan Love's numbers are terrific. They beat Detroit, who's now 7-5. I think that's in the mix. Usually we do worst loss. I'm going to offer up something new. Worst win. Miami wins again. They started 1-6, 2-7. They fire their general manager. All of this looks dead. And now, you know, they've won 4 of their last 5. We did see the Baltimore game, all of us, right? Because it was prime time. Everybody's watching. You're like, God, the Dolphins suck. And that was like the only bad game out of the last 5. McDaniel, the report is the head coach is coming back. Tua, the pain on the contract, the exit is after 26. It's not after this year. So it feels like this little flurry from the Dolphins is going to trick everyone into thinking, like, I don't know how many people are going to be tricked by it, but I guess they're just going to run this whole thing back next year, and it kind of feels a little pointless. Let's do some numbers for you.
Do you know how easy this is for me? Do you have any fucking idea how easy this is? This is a fucking joke.
Myles Garrett averages just under 1.6 sacks per game. He's got 19 now. He's on pace for 27 sacks this season, which would set the record. His move against Trent Williams, if I was just doing like film break, I would play that play first. He does basically a Euro hop step at his size with his speed, where he's averaging, I think, the quickest get off of any player on the defensive line in the entire league. And Trent Williams, who's an all-timer, he sets him up outside. It just must be awesome to have moves and be a defensive end where you're just practicing your different moves. You're like, all right, I'm going to bring this one out in the third quarter. And this is my Mariano Rivera, where it's just fourth quarter, third down, the closer move. And I've been setting you up outside. Although I imagine the funniest part is like when there's a 6th round edge guy who's just not that good and he's practicing a million different moves, and the defensive line coach would just be like, hey, can you just do anything that works? It reminds me of Rolando Vieira, who the Red Sox signed in the early 2000s. He was probably a lot older than his birth certificate said. And he was talking with pitching coach Joe Kerrigan. And they were doing this feature. It was like some ESPN feature. And Vieira was explaining all of his pitches. He was like, oh, I've got the fastball, I've got the cutter, I've got the slider, I've got a curve, I've got the slurve, I got this. And then he started like naming all his pitches. And Kerrigan's like, oh my God, you have 7 pitches? This is amazing. And of course, all Red Sox fans, because it was new, right? We're like, this is going to be unbelievable. El Duque, who? And then I was in the minor league system as an announcer, not as a player. And he actually had one pitch and it went 86, 87 miles an hour, and it didn't do any of those things. Myles Garrett is not Rolando Vieira. All right, final thought here on some PFF grades. I know there's been this kind of shift now where the ex-players despise PFF grades, if you've seen it on social media. I think my guy Chris Long did like a very fair and non-emotional breakdown of it. I've seen offensive linemen get a touch more emotional about some of these grades, and the world may have shifted a bit on the PFF grades during the NBC broadcasts when DeAndre Hopkins was ranked as the 10th best receiver in the NFL according to PFF. And look, these guys know way more about football than I'll ever know, so I'm not suggesting the entire thing, but it was a tough look for him last night with that Denver defense. Zach Allen, number 47. Benito, number 26. Surtain, number 29. Surtain is so fucking good that I'm embarrassed to think that any other corner was even at his level. But it did feel like there was a bit of a shift. All right, final thought here. This is a new award, the Dan Gadzarich Award. You may remember the big man in the NBA first came in the league as Dan Gadzuric, and then years later, he was Dan Gadzarich. And that happens with Euros a lot. Starting to get a little comfortable, grab a few rebounds. You're like, you know what, folks? I know it's been 3 years, but here's how to pronounce my name. Did that happen last night with Marcus Mariota? I imagine if Tarico's giving you a little bit more emphasis than the Mariota, that means Tarico's right. Like, I would just assume anything having to do with anything verbal, Tarico's right. It's like when the Spurs back in the day used to draft a player I didn't like. I'd be like, I guess I'm just wrong. But yeah, it felt like there was a little emphasis. 11 seasons in would be a record for a change in pronunciation. But it does remind me of my good friend Joe Tessitore, Tess back in the day. He was like, it's Mariota when he was at Oregon. I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that. It's official. The Big Shack is out now. And because I've been telling you, it's a serious burger. 2 Angus beef patties, 3 buns, new secret sauce. It's stacked, balanced, and built the right way. You get everything you expect from Shake Shack. Fresh ingredients, that toasted potato bun, and sauce that pulls the whole thing together. For $9.99, it's kind of wild how much burger you're getting, especially one that doesn't taste like typical fast food. It's big, it's fresh, and it's legit one of their best burgers ever. I did it. I hit up the Shake Shack near my place post-gym. We actually filmed an ad for it. Don't think they're going to run this one. Need to tighten a couple things up. But I went right in there at 11 a.m. and had myself a Shack burger and a side cheeseburger because no one was looking. And it smashed. I smashed it. Didn't need a spot. Over 50 grams of protein. It was everything, man. It was a treat. I usually don't let myself do that early in the day, but I don't need any workout shake now. If you've been waiting to see what all the hype's about, today's the day. Go to Shake Shack and order the Big Shack. Sounds familiar. Made different. He's one of the best voices in college football. I enjoy him every single Saturday. He also has his own podcast, The Joel Klatt Show, and joining us, the voice of college football for Fox Sports, Joel Klatt. It's good to see you. I feel like I've hung out with you all season long. Going into that game, it was kind of like, all right, the only way this is a game is Ohio State has to screw up, which they did last year. And then Sand throws probably the worst pass of his entire season. And you're like, is this actually going to happen? And then the next 3 quarters are a reminder of who Ohio State is. So I don't know that you could have learned anything new about them in their dominant win. Is there anything about this team as they've closed this strongly that you feel, whether it's like, I kind of feel like Sand's the best quarterback in the sport right now. Bo Jackson and who he's become, the defensive guys that are going to be in the NFL. Like, is there something about this team later in the season that you've enjoyed even more than who they were at the beginning of the year?
That's a great question and framing. Yeah, actually, there have been some things lately. They, more so than anybody else in the country, have provided answers and not created questions with their play. You look at a lot of other games, whether it's A&M or Georgia at times. You can even say this about Oregon. Maybe everyone except for Indiana, it's like every time Ohio State plays, it's providing answers. Oh, hey, we don't know if their run game is that great. Oh, here's a 20-play drive, 16 of them runs in the snow against Michigan for 11 and a half minutes. Oh, no, okay. So, like, they can run the football. Hey, we don't know if Julian Sand can handle adversity. Oh, he throws a pick on his second passing attempt on the road. They're down 6-0, and he comes out and he has 2 incompletions his next 21 attempts. Oh, okay. So he can handle that moment and he can handle that situation. answers. Oh, hey, look, they got gashed in the run game a couple of times. Oh, they changed their front and they provided an answer, and they immediately shut down that offense and totally dominate the game. So every time I watch them on film, cover one of their games, I'm more confident in the complete nature of their team. They're good against the run on defense. They're good against the pass on defense. They can run it on offense. They can throw it on offense. And what I find interesting is that they can do so on command. So think of it like this, Ryan. Against Penn State, it's a 3-point game coming out of halftime. And they decide, you know what, we're going to go to fifth gear. And it's just like boom, 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 boom. And it's pinball, passing game right down the field, big lead, here we go. It was on demand. They decided that's what they wanted to be at the moment. Now you go into the game against Michigan. It's snowing. The conditions are bad. It's an 8-point game. It's a 1-possession game. And what happens? They get the touchdown to Tate, and then they decide we're going to take the entire air out of the building. We're going to run it 16 out of 20 times. On command, they dominate on the ground. So providing answers and not creating questions is what I've learned about Ohio State.
Let's look at them then in comparison to the other contenders and however long that list is. I'm with you. It feels like Ohio State against the field, and I'm just too much of like, something can go wrong. So sure. I probably always take the field.
Doesn't mean that they're definitely going to win, but yeah.
Right.
Just means they're the favorite.
Yeah, and they should be. So I can't wait for this game against Indiana. I feel completely different about Indiana this year than last year. I think everybody should feel, anybody that doubted them last year, I understand it. This year, that doubt should not carry over. The schedule hasn't been daunting down the stretch, but they've destroyed these teams, which I think is a really good indicator of how good you can be. So how do you see this matchup?
Well, let me start by, giving Indiana their due, because the only other team that's as complete and has as many answers is Indiana, and they're more tested than Ohio State. You can make a strong argument that the two best individual wins in all of college football all season long are Alabama at Georgia and Indiana at Oregon. Those two wins are phenomenal wins. Okay. Texas beats A&M at home, so it's like those two wins in the location that they happened were exceptional. Indiana also goes to Iowa and gets a win. Indiana also goes to Penn State, and they're tested. This group is not going to be afraid of anything thrown at them on Saturday against Ohio State. They're elite at quarterback. I think Fernando Mendoza is likely going to be the number one quarterback taken in the draft, based on the conversations I have with scouts around the league. They can run it. Their offensive line is better than they were a year ago. Their defense is experienced. They're exceptional. And they run a unique type of scheme that makes it really tough to move the football. Lots of zone blitzes. They roll away from a great corner, D'Angelo Pons, and they allow him to cover one half of the field so they can produce numbers on the other half of the field. So all of these, like Indiana is just a really good football team. And I think they are the biggest threat to Ohio State in the country. I think what we're seeing is the absolute 1 and 2 teams in the country. And it wouldn't shock me, based on how the game goes, if they remain 1 and 2 even after the game.
Yeah, I would love for the voters, if this is a really close outcome in the Big Ten championship game, to go, you know what? Like, we penalize teams way too much for losing to a team that they're probably supposed to lose to. And if it's competitive, there's just certain times in the rankings, like a team goes and play, they're 15th and they play the top 5 team in the country at their place. They lose by a touchdown. It's like, so now you're going to drop them, you're going to drop them 5 spots. Like,
I hate that.
So, I think that's a bit of human nature there. If I were doing a poll today, I would be tempted to have Oregon as the number 3 team in the country.
I actually did. I put out mine. I'm glad you said that, because everyone just calls me a Big Ten homer.
I've said that, but I think it's right this year.
And I looked at their November. Ryan, you probably did as well. And
exactly.
You looked at what they did in November, the locations that they won the games, the fashion in which they won the games. And then you looked at what Georgia did. And as impressive as they were in some outings, then they gained 260 yards and scored 16 against Georgia Tech. And you're like, wait, come on. Like, what are we doing?
Especially looking at Tech's defense, which is the point you were going to make. Right. Yeah.
42 against Pitt, that they gave up the week prior. So based on consistency and play at the current time, that's what I did. I went Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon, and then Georgia right behind that.
I couldn't get past it with Oregon's, when you look at the best parts of Georgia's season and what their loss is to
Sure.
a team like Bama, 3 points, shutting them out in the second half. Granted, it's at home. But this Oregon team, especially that Iowa win, where, you'd have to watch Iowa enough throughout the season.
Well, hold on just a sec, because you could make an argument that Oregon's loss is a more impressive loss. It was Indiana. I know it was at home. Georgia lost at home. Oregon lost at home. One was to Bama. One was to Indiana. I mean, if we're saying that Indiana is a bona fide top 2 team, isn't Oregon's loss at home more, explained than Georgia's to Alabama, who, by the way, Alabama is incredibly flawed?
Look, I think that's fair. I guess I just felt like even though it was a close
I think you
Oregon,
got wrapped up in the brands there.
No,
to be fair, like the Oregon loss at home is much more explainable than Georgia's loss to Alabama. Alabama is so much more flawed than Indiana.
Yeah, no doubt. But I think Indiana was in control of that game for the entire game. And there was a pick six, makes it 20-20, and it just didn't feel right. Like, as I was watching that game, I'm going, I can't believe this game is 20-20. Like, Indiana's been the superior
Georgia
team.
should have beat Alabama. They dropped the pass right down the middle of the field. The fourth down was a bad play call. They had their chances to come back and win that game and didn't.
I would say the Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas, and Georgia Tech wins, even with Tech's defense. Like,
I'll give you that.
If you were doing blind resume, I don't know that you'd ever pick. Look, I'm actually more on your side on this one, but the reason why I ultimately was like, this is the thing, is sometimes I'm giving resume too much relevance, and then other times I'm like, hey, I just think this team's better than this team, and this is what I'd want to do. But I'm not going to be consistent through 12. There's no way I'd be consistent through 12 with the same application.
And the committee can't either. And they're in the same pickle because you can tell that they want, I think you probably agree with this, they want to use eye test and film. You can tell. Like, they don't want Notre Dame in some sort of argument, because they're like, no. We just believe that they're where they need to be. Even though if you look at the resume and you look at the on-field result, it's like, well, the Miami win over Notre Dame should play out in Miami's favor, and it's not. And it's because the committee is saying, no, we just believe, based on the eye test and our film study, that Notre Dame is better. And yet the committee will lean on resume in other cases. And they'll say, well, this team has to be in because of X number of wins against ranked opponents, so on and so forth. To what I really despise, I will be really candid. I despise this moment every year, and it becomes a propaganda politicking moment, and we don't play it on the field. I would rather Steve Sarkisian not have to sit behind a podium and talk about his impressive resume, which is his job and prerogative, and he should do this because this is the model that we've been in. I'd rather him be under the headset and playing. I believe that we should have a defined path to the playoff. I believe that we should have play-in games within conferences this weekend, not just conference championship games, so that Miami would be able to play Duke and, BYU would play Utah. If you just seeded it out and you had some automatic berths here and there, we would have a play-in weekend where all these teams could go and make the argument on the field and not behind the podium. So, I know that went in a direction and I'm sure you didn't expect it to, but
no, I was going to get there. So let's just go with it now, because everybody can make fun of every single coach this time of year. And I know that probably back in the day when I had the daily radio show, you'd be like, oh, can you believe what so-and-so said? And then finally you get to the point, like, what is he supposed to say? What is Sark supposed to say after his third top 10 win? He's going to go, yeah, you know what, though, that Florida loss, I don't know what the hell happened. I think the Texas argument isn't so much even about the Florida loss and how it compares to other teams' losses. It's just there's a lot of weeks there, too, where they didn't look like a great team. It's still hilarious to think against Oklahoma, they weren't even ranked because everybody was just so sick of them at that point. But they have some really good high-end stuff with this. But the Duke thing, that's the ACC's fault. And I could make fun of Manny Diaz at 7-5 going, hey, we deserve a shot at play. But what is he supposed to say?
Of course.
If anything, when you look through it, because I was looking at it, you had those 5 teams at 6-2. Duke's played UVA, who they got smashed by, didn't play SMU, didn't play Miami, didn't play Pitt, lost to Georgia Tech. They lost to Tulane with their players. They lost to UConn. They got destroyed by Illinois. And because they had the better opponent's conference winning percentage, they're playing for a chance in the playoff, and they have Miami's spot. So, I mean, this is one of those tiebreaker scenarios where this is kind of connected, but kind of its own thing. All of the conferences kind of deserve this. Like,
sure,
you're the ones that set this up. You're the ones that have this imbalance, whether it was Indiana last year or A&M this year, who in a way you can look at it and being like, maybe it's good they lost to Texas, because if you look at their SEC experience compared to some of these other teams, like, this is all of their faults for allowing this to happen. So in your scenario with the play-in and teams not in the conference championship, so you're not adding multiple, you're just adding one more game for teams. Would it just be assigned by the conference? Like, how would that play out?
Okay, so this is a model I talked about this summer, and I know I just threw it out there, but I'm in favor of an access-based defined path playoff. I think it should be 14 teams. I think we should have 2 byes at the top, the 1 and 2 seed. The 1 and 2 seed should be, and again, you could poke holes in this, and I'm not saying that it's perfect, but the top 2 seeds would be the Big 10 champ and the SEC champ. And so those 2 championship games would take place as they do now, basically 1 versus 2 in the conference, and the winner would get a bye and a top 2 seed in the playoff. The loser would go to the playoff automatically. Then what you would have is play-in games everywhere else. And there's 4 spots for the Big 10, 4 spots for the SEC, 2 each in the ACC and the Big 12, which they would never agree to, but I think it's the best model, and it's probably the most correct model. So the play-in games would look like this. If you're in the top 6 seeds in the SEC or the Big 10, you would get a chance to play a play-in game. So this weekend, Iowa would go to Oregon, winner goes. This weekend, Michigan would go back to USC, winner goes. This weekend, Oklahoma would go to Ole Miss, winner goes. Texas would go back to A&M after beating them this weekend, winner goes. My question my question would be, hey, Texas fans, would you rather have a chance on the field in 60 minutes against A&M, or take your chances with 13 people behind closed doors in a committee room? And I think that they would much rather have their chances on the field. In the Big 12, it would look like this: Houston at Texas Tech, Utah at BYU, winner goes. Hey, Utah and BYU, would you like that opportunity? Probably. And the ACC would be Georgia Tech against Virginia, Miami against Duke, winner goes. You'd have 2 at-large spots for the Group of 5 champion. They would get in. And then I would take the next highest ranked team, which is Vanderbilt, and say, hey, you played Notre Dame, winner goes. So we would be playing all those games, and we'd be creating a 14-team playoff on the field with a defined path, versus having this selection-based model and having these arguments about what resume is better or what eye test is better. I think it would be a better version for the fans, and it would be a better version for the players.
Well, we know we don't like the computers. We know we don't like the people. So maybe the games, anything. Look, I don't like that it's 12. I don't like that we're sitting here arguing about Vandy, BYU, and Utah, and maybe even Texas.
You can think they're too flawed. Is that what you're saying? That's like, this is too much. It's too expanded.
Look, if the 12-team playoff played out for 20 years, okay, you would have years you're like, that team is still alive for a chance at a national championship. And that is my problem. It's not the years. Like, again, my whole thing is that flawed systems don't show their flaws in the years the flaws are exposed. Like, they're, and I'm not asking for perfect, because that's impossible. I just know that if we had 20 years of this with 12 teams, we'd be like, this year it's actually too crowded, right? It feels like teams are going to be left out that are worthy. I just think a national championship is so special, and that if you've proven that you're not remotely special through the 12 games and maybe the conference game, like, again, these would be the teams that wouldn't be in a conference championship game. I just don't like the idea that it's like, okay, but now you're also invited with these other guys for a chance at a national championship. And people say, hey, you the NFL has that. I'd be like, I don't like that either. Okay, but that's a different topic. So go ahead.
I don't know if you can solve all problems. So let's start with that premise, right? I think every playoff model has its downsides in every sport. Sure. And I think that's part of the problem in college, is that we try to create this like perfect scenario. It's like, we don't want to leave a team out. It's like, well, sometimes teams are left out.
I want to leave teams out, on the record, by the way.
And sometimes you include teams that shouldn't, right? Yeah. Based on these flawed systems. And I hear what you're saying. And so what I'm hearing you say is, like, in 23, you were like, hey, sorry, 2-time defending champ Georgia with 1 loss to Bama. It's just like, it is what it is. You lost the game, and now you're not in the 4-team playoff. And I think some people in college football wanted to, quote, right that wrong and go to the expanded version. I think that we get more arguments of flawed resumes the more we expand. Like, the answer to this year's playoff is not further expansion. I just vehemently disagree with that. I believe that it is the way the playoff is made. Make it a defined path. We know in the NFL how teams go to the playoff. I also believe, to your point about conferences doing this to themselves, I firmly believe that with the size of these conferences, they need to look long and hard about creating schedules based on where you finished the previous year. I think you should play a tougher schedule if you're a better team. You should play an easier schedule if you're a worse team, rather than randomly doing it. And Oklahoma having a ridiculously tough schedule and A&M having a ridiculously weak schedule in the SEC. I think it should be based on where you finished the prior year. But these are all discussions that I feel like get into the weeds, and you can lose. Some fans are like, what are you talking about? Because the bottom line is our sport has never been more popular, and I don't think it's ever been as good. And that's been bearing out in the numbers when people are consuming it and interested in it. And I'm thankful for that.
I always wonder sometimes, like, if all of this is actually always good for the sport, the same way that people complain about player empowerment in the NBA. And it's like, these guys can just, it used to be, I want out. And then it's like, you can sign an extension and then ask out before the extension kicks in. Like, that's bold. And then that actually became kind of normal. And yet it was, you could argue, really good for the sport. It was all the drama and it was all the BS. But, that's part of the college football thing that made it a fun topic. It's a fun topic to discuss. But whenever I think of, like, somebody's like, oh, somebody has to be in charge. Like, I want to get to Lane. I want to get to some of these other things. It's like, well, somebody needs to be in charge of this. I don't know that the people that are kind of in charge of their geographic area want any one person to tell them what they can or can't do.
No, of course they don't.
So this dream idea of, like, one person needs to be in charge of college football, why would any of the people that are just making it up as they go along, why would they want anyone to tell them they can't do the things they've been doing the last few years? It's never going to happen.
To your point about Steve Sarkisian, he should say that, because that's who he's representing, is Texas. Like, he should go out there and
he has to.
He has to. It's his job. More power to him. He absolutely should, and his players expect him to. Everybody in the SEC expects Greg Sankey to make the best possible deal for them, not for college football, for them. That's his job. Same thing with Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten. The Big Ten programs and athletic directors and presidents expect him to make the best possible moves for them, not for the sport, for them. And that's how we are being kind of governed and run. There is one entity that has enough power and leverage to wrestle some of that away from the conference commissioners, and that's the CFP. The CFP, as it's currently constructed, could be a centralizing body in college football. It could be an entity that started to strip away rights to non-conference games and own those themselves, and start setting up non-conference games for team and all sorts of different things. Now, will that happen? I don't know. But what I do know is that in this current makeup, we will continue to put Band-Aids over bullet wounds. And what we're seeing right now is car wrecks in college football. Duke possibly going to the playoff is a car wreck, guys. The ACC possibly missing the playoff entirely if they were to win is a car wreck.
Would you, by the way, would you have Duke in, would you be arguing Duke to be a playoff team if you were in the committee?
No. Gross. Sorry. No, Duke is not a good enough team to be in the college football playoff. I know that could be controversial, but I would take a JMU and whatever the American champion ends up being. I would take that. I was just going to say also, we have allowed the car wreck of a coach leaving in the middle of a playoff run to start being like, well, no, we need to fix the calendar. It's like, well, we've known the calendar has been broken for quite some time, and we're just always in college football going to wait for car wrecks in order to fix things. And then everyone fixes things with only their region in mind. And so we get solutions that aren't great for the entirety of the sport.
What did you think of the Lane story this week and his decision?
His decision is his. You know, like I don't begrudge any man that decision. If he wanted to leave, he wanted to leave. And in that sense, does the calendar make it the story that it is? Yes, but that's still not the calendar's fault because there are consequences to decisions, and that doesn't make it a less selfish decision, right? He left a playoff team high and dry as the play caller. Sorry, guys, you know, I need to go over here for my future. And Ole Miss says, well, for our future, you can't coach the playoff. Both understandable. If I was Ole Miss, I wouldn't let him coach the playoff. There's no way. But no one is focusing on the narrow aspect of just this year. Lane's got his future in mind. Ole Miss has their future in mind. And the players are sitting there looking at this through a straw. And they're saying, well, we're just trying to win a game here. We're just trying to win a couple of games and potentially win a national championship. And maybe Pete Golding is the guy to do it. I think Lane dents his credibility with this move. I also think he was a big fish in a small pond. The guys that you would want to hire, the first guys on the list, the top 4 or 5 guys on the list were not available. Therefore, Lane became the top name on the list. Again, big fish, small pond. You would have called Kirby Smart. You would have called Ryan Day. You would have called Dan Lanning, Kurt Signetti, Marcus Freeman, maybe even Steve Sarkisian. All these guys have won at a higher clip than Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has not won a conference. He has not been to a college football playoff. And yet he was treated in this cycle as if he was Nick Saban. He was Nick Saban because everybody else put their hand down. He's the only one that left his hand up and said, no, I'm willing to leave a playoff team. Rhett Lashley was unwilling to do so at SMU. Kurt Signetti was unwilling to do so at Indiana. Mike Elko was unwilling to do so at Texas A&M. Dan Lanning was unwilling to do so at Oregon. You knew you couldn't get Ryan Day or Kirby Smart. So here's Lane taking advantage of an opportunity in the spotlight, which he has never shied from. That's all well and good, but I would just caution every coach will now be able to recruit against that. They will say, why would you commit to Lane if he's never going to commit to you? Because at the next possible opportunity, when the Dallas Cowboys call or the Miami Dolphins call, he's going to say, well, of course I have to go, guys. It's for my future.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard all of the different, like that's the old Saban thing where he was joking. Everybody in the conference started saying, hey, if you go to Alabama, like Saban's retiring next year. And then the player would ask Saban and be like, are you going to be here next year? And then Saban was like, with the transfer portal, I'd be like, are you going to be here next year?
Yeah.
So, you know, I understand like Lane, the Lane resume is tough to defend for how quickly he is like, all right, I'm on to this next thing. He's wanted the LSU job for years. I think there's a lot of kids in Louisiana that go to Louisiana because it's the home state school. Mm-hmm. So if Brian Kelly can still hang in recruiting with his approach, I'm sure Lane will be able to handle that part of the recruiting thing. You brought up Ryan Day, not like that was a real possibility, and you would know it better because you've done so many Ohio State, and I imagine the pre-production thing. But if you were ever going to get Ryan Day after the Michigan loss last year, might have been the week to call and be like, hey, do you want to get out of there?
Do you want out of there? You might have been like, yes, absolutely.
So I also think that LSU loves fucking with Ole Miss on the precipice of a playoff run.
Might be part of that. And by the way, this may work.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it may work. They might turn into a juggernaut, and then they're going to point and say, like, see, guys, of course it will work. I'm not saying this won't work. I'm just saying it's dirty. You know, it feels dirty, feels nasty. And that's okay. You know, Lane's good for the sport, and I like him personally. None of this I don't feel like is a personal attack. The decision he made is a selfish one, and that's okay. You know, Lane made a selfish decision, and Ole Miss did too. And unfortunately, as a former player, I sit there and think about Trinidad Chambliss and those guys, and they're like, we put ourselves in position to do something really, really special. And now I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Not without their play caller. You know, he was a big part of that, and his entire offensive staff leaving. I mean, who's going to coach him? Hell, I'll come down and help you guys out. Like, I mean, you know, feel bad for those kids.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, the whole thing is dirty. But I understand the motivations behind every party's decision with all this. And I don't blame Ole Miss for going, you know what? We don't want you around here.
That's right.
Especially, you know, that's the part of the bargain with Lane. But there's just too many people, especially offensive guys. Like, I remember being on sidelines for certain games and you're around like, guys like you, guys that played at a high level, and they would watch some of the stuff that Lane was doing that I can't identify and just like shaking their head going, he's that good.
Ryan, he's a top 2 Saturday offensive coach. Like
Who's
his
the other
play
guy, Stein?
No, from just a play calling perspective, it was Ryan. Now I know that he kind of gave some of that up to Brian Hartline this year, but just in terms of like the knack for calling the right play at the right time, Lane and Ryan Day were the best. Right behind them is probably Sark.
I'm with you. The Ryan Day stuff, just knowing like, okay, that big shot is coming, and it always feels like it's coming at the exact perfect time, especially when you have the athletes and you have the advantage, but you also like kind of just setting it up. I feel like I'm not going to disagree with you on the Ryan Day thing. Would you have gone for it in 4th and 2 if you were Kalen in that Iron Bowl game?
I thought it's interesting because I was watching the game, and as they got into that sequence of downs, on 2nd down, I remember thinking to myself, like, I think he would go for it here. And only because of his history. Let's not forget, like, he was in an Apple Cup in 23, that undefeated year with Penix that they ultimately went to the national championship game. He went for it on his own side of the 50 with like a crazy.
Was it like at the 30 or something ridiculous?
It was, and he did like a fake little pitch back. It was like a end around style play. And so in my mind, I thought to myself, like, if Kalen remains true to his nature, I think that this is 4-down territory. And this is one of those deals that if it works, you look like a genius and everyone's like, oh man, this is great. And if it didn't, they'd be running him out of town. And that's the risk that you take as a coach. But yeah, even in the sequence of downs, I had this hunch that this was 4-down territory, or even kind of a 4-down drive. You got the sense. It's like watching a Ryan Day game or a Lane Kiffin game. You get the sense for their blueprint and their fingerprint, and you're like, this feels like one of those Kalen moments. And that's kind of how I viewed it when I was watching the game. So I wasn't shocked by it, and I'm not surprised that it worked.
So let me throw some thoughts at you on this one, because I was expecting, like, I don't post a lot, but it was just so absurd watching that game play out. And anybody that knows the Iron Bowl history, it's like Auburn can have the worst team ever, and Bama can have the greatest team ever. And for whatever reason, it's again why Saban thinks it's on it. We've seen plenty of results from that game where you're like, I can't believe this is a game. I guess you could probably argue a little bit on like Auburn making the change at quarterback, getting Hugh out of there, and that defense, like that might be the single best unit of a bad football team in college football. Like, guys
I think
front.
I would agree with that. Think about some of the games that they've been in with a bad record and a head coach that's been fired. They had Georgia dead to rights. I mean, you could make a strong case that the SEC replay officials saved Georgia in that game, like a really strong case, because Auburn had them dead to rights. And that stadium, you're right, that's probably the most talented bad team in America.
I'm glad you said it. I'm glad you agreed. So you didn't think I was just being an SEC homer there. So as I'm watching that game, it's like, okay, well, here we go again. Bama can't run the football. They haven't been able to really run the football all season long. And it felt like they got it going a little bit in the beginning of the game, where it's like, of all the scenarios, Bama running against this Auburn front that doesn't let anybody run against them. But that slowly ended. It ended up not being something that they could go to. I thought when Simpson hit his head, it was clear that, whether it's a punch and you're rattled and then you come back. So I don't want to get back to that peak concussion diagnosis from the couch phase that we had in football for a long time there, where it was like everybody was saying that everybody had a concussion. So I don't know. But then when Simpson ran it into the pylon, it looked like his awareness was shockingly off for a guy that was running in, and he gets killed again, like right into the chin strap. And I'm like, how could you have not been anticipating any kind of collision here as you're running it to the pylon on that play that, whatever. So you can't run. Simpson's pretty rattled. And by the way, Simpson's one of the toughest quarterbacks in all of college football.
Really good player. I love him.
Love him, and learned about it in the Florida State loss, because he got his ass kicked the whole day that day too, but at least was still out there competing. So I don't know what you would have liked about your matchups other than, hey, do we really think Auburn's going to go the length of the field and, like, even if it's a field goal, fine, although it feels like everybody gets in the field goal range now. I couldn't believe he did it. And I was expecting somebody to go, hey, on the chart, 4th and 2, time this yardage line. It's a go. It's like, yeah, but does the chart say you can't run? Does the chart say that your quarterback seems off? Does the chart say that it's at Jordan Hare? Like all of these other things that the chart is never going to say. I can't believe he did it. And, whenever we do a lot of the Big Ten SEC stuff over the years. There's no question to me, the SEC is the deeper conference, but all of these contenders, I've never been more down on their contenders than I am this year. I mean, look, I don't know.
The top, you mean? Like the top of each conference feels different, but the depth also feels different.
Even Bama losing to Michigan 2 years ago in the playoff, I didn't like Bama because of Milroe. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they don't have anyone in again. Depends on kind of what you thought about Texas. It still probably didn't feel like it was a true SEC team. You're right. But I don't want to say ever. I don't want to do hyperbole here, but it has been all season long, whether it's A&M in the passing game, whether it's Alabama basically being Ty Simpson, help us out. Their pass rush is getting better. Georgia's pass rush not necessarily being there. Whatever you think of Oklahoma, because the resume is incredible. The offense is terrible. This group of SEC contenders is a really unimpressive group in comparison to what we think the top 3 teams are in the Big Ten.
The group of contenders is deeper than I can ever remember. The quality of the contenders is also weaker than I can ever remember, or at least in modern vintage is the way that I would put it. And again, as you know, and we've had the discussion, when I say that, people just think I'm a total Big Ten homer, but I think that that's accurate this year. Everybody in the SEC has a really fatal, if you will, or big vulnerability. I believe that to be the case. Let me go back to just real quick because I think you made.
By the way, we agree on this, and I've been saying it for weeks because there's usually one team. Like I started to get that way about Georgia again a little bit, and I go, hey, you can't do this with Georgia anymore. You can't do it with Oklahoma. You can't do it with Bama. Even A&M, look, there's so many guys on the defense that I love, all the third down numbers and all that stuff. But then sometimes you start thinking about the schedule and everything. So anyway, continue your thought here because this is probably the most aligned we've ever been on this topic.
And I think it's correct. I think we're both correct here, and we're on the right side. Let me just go back to that Bama 4th down because you started with that and then moved towards the bigger SEC conversation. I do think there's an element of because you can't run it and because your quarterback is limited or not playing his best or foggy or whatever it is, right? And I agree with you about the speculation of those types of things. I don't want to speculate either. But when you have a feeling that like we don't have it offensively tonight, when you're in position, you have to take advantage. And so I think that it actually encourages moves like 4th down and in those scenarios because you don't know if you're ever going to get back to that spot. Like, do we have enough to get back to this moment and in position? Plus, I think relying on that defense, which had been playing very well and has played a lot better in the second half of the season. I will give Bama a lot of credit because their defense has gotten a lot better during the course of the year. And I think that'll give Georgia a lot of problems this Saturday in the SEC championship game. There's no doubt in my mind. So that's on that 4th down, just from a framing of a coach standpoint. Then, when you go to the SEC and the flaws of some of these teams, I'll just put it this way. And this, again, I keep saying like everyone calls me an SEC hater. I don't see Oklahoma doing much in this playoff. They are so flawed offensively. They are, if they don't get a big play, like if you pit them up against even Texas Tech this weekend, Oregon this weekend, Indiana this weekend, they're not winning that game. Unless they get an 80-yard touchdown and win it 17-14, like they're not. So OU's likely not going to do much in this playoff. Ole Miss just lost their play caller. What are they going to do in the playoff? Georgia is so inconsistent right now. You've got multiple possession deficits in all sorts of games to average teams. Then you score 16 against Georgia Tech, like we were talking about, who's struggling defensively. So which Georgia do I see that night? Is it the Georgia that was ready for Texas? Or is it the Georgia that played Georgia Tech? I think their inconsistencies are frustrating to watch from afar. And then from an Alabama perspective, if they're not throwing the ball at an elite level, they are incredibly vulnerable. Incredibly. Look at what Oklahoma was able to do with, to them, even being outgained by 200 yards. So
I know. I didn't even get to Ole Miss because I just felt like they screwed around with so many different teams, and I thought they were always like 2 or 3 spots higher than I would have had them. You know,
and their defense is suspect, and now they lost their play caller. If I were to ask you, do you believe any of those teams can make the national championship game? Or how likely would you think that any of those make it to that point?
I really wish this was after a game where Gunnar Stockton didn't throw for 70 yards, because I think that Georgia front has started to look more like the Georgia front. I mean, I would even make the same case at the beginning of the year with Alabama. I'm like, where are the dudes? Like, how come they don't have one edge guy? And I do think there's a few guys now that I'm like, okay, you know, that's kind of what I expect from an Alabama front there a little bit. Although the Ryan Williams storyline at receiver, that got really weird. Yeah. Considering, like, look, nobody's better than Jeremiah Smith. He's the second best receiver in college football last year.
Yes.
And
I mean, and by the way, easily.
Like, and as much fun to watch as anybody.
Like, what in the world?
I don't know. I don't know what was going on with that.
Can I also just suggest, throw out, you also have to view those teams in the playoff in the vein of, they've got to go up against potentially an Ohio State team that has 4 first-round draft picks right down the middle of their defense. I don't think that we should overlook like the historic level of defense that Ohio State has played, albeit, and I will give you this, against a bad schedule this year. They have not played many quality offenses. But man, like that defense looks like a defense that is going to be able to hold just about anybody that they want to under 20 points.
All right, I'm glad you said that, because I think there's also something where, like, hey, if we end up with like an SEC national championship matchup, you're going to go, how the hell did that happen? Okay.
Sure.
I don't know how much I believe this, and this is not me then going, hey, since we've agreed, let's start messing with each other here. But is there anything to be said of, like, of course, Indiana looks impressive to close the season. They're playing, like, Big Ten fans constantly yell about this 9th conference game. It's like, I don't know. I'd love to play an extra conference game against some of these teams, because the bottom of it is terrible.
Sure.
And if you're
so
looking
is Kentucky, so is Mississippi State.
No, Mississippi State beat Arizona State when they had Levitt. So that's not, that's South Carolina's second to last place in the SEC. You want to go through the point differential of Purdue and UCLA and Wisconsin.
I do not want to sit here and defend the bottom of the Big Ten. I wouldn't. I just want you to hear me say that.
Okay, but is there any part of this where we think, well, yeah, those SEC teams didn't look as good because, within the last few games, every one of them had somebody on the schedule that was like a real threat, whether they won or lost the game.
Sure.
Where you have, as you just said, Ohio State, look, I thought Michigan was a little overrated. We clearly know that they were limited in the passing game. That was not a great matchup for them. Do you think there'll be any lesson where, like, we ended up falling in love with these teams that were rolling through inferior conference opponent the last 4 or 5 games of the season? Because it's at least on paper, it's accurate to say it.
There is a risk of that. There's no doubt. I won't disagree with that. I do think that there are some teams in the Big Ten that I think are better than people give them credit. I think that I would put Iowa in that. I would put Penn State in that. I mean, Penn State's one of those teams, like some of those bottom SEC teams, where you're like, okay, like, they're really talented, and it got away from them, and their coach got, it didn't go. But
Iowa, totally agree.
Player.
Penn State, like, I think that Indiana win against Penn State, we were totally aligned. Like, you had to watch that game to understand, like, hey, they showed up today, and this is a talented group, and
there's a first round edge rusher getting after it, and so there are some things. Now, as a whole, no, the league doesn't provide a terrible or a huge amount of competition. So if I was a coach that was preparing a team to play Ohio State, I would play that angle, even though Ohio State has the Texas win. And, you can speak to that if you're on the Ohio State side. I would absolutely say, similar to Urban has told me this story, right? And this is a good story. So in '06, Michigan and Ohio State play as 1-2 to end the regular season. You remember famously, Troy Smith is going to win the Heisman Trophy. And Florida kind of like gets into the national championship game. And no one's really paying attention. The whole discussion was, hey, should Michigan and Ohio State play again, for the national championship? And the BCS national championship then is Florida and Ohio State. And Urban has said that all preparation time, all month, all he kept talking about to his team is they haven't seen anybody. They haven't done what you've done. You've been in all of these wars. You're the more tested and ready team for this. And then it played out on the field. So that's what I would say. Now, will that work? I'm not sure, because I can tell you this, with an NFL defensive coordinator like Matt Patricia and those players that they have, Downs is a first rounder. Arvell Reese is going to be possibly the first pick in the draft. Caden McDonald, like there are players.
You didn't even have to say
there.
With Gus, I'm like, they haven't said Caleb's name all day because they didn't need to yet.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Right. And Arvell's nuts. And you guys were great on that too, because like you were talking about him. And then as soon as we got done with you guys raving about Reese, then it shows him dropping back off the edge in coverage, and you're just like, this is stupid.
Yeah, he can do a lot. So I would absolutely play that angle up. But I don't know if that will work. I think in particular that defense, some of these offenses in the SEC really struggle. To our conversation, Oklahoma's offense really struggles. Georgia at times is inconsistent. Do I believe Gunnar Stockton is going to go light up Ohio State? I don't either.
We can say,
yeah.
No, we're on the same page with that. It's funny because that Florida Ohio State national championship game, you could argue and that was my first year at ESPN. Like, I think that was the start of the SEC is at a different level. Yeah,
it was.
And then it just carried over. Look, they won all the titles and all that kind of stuff, which I've argued about with Cannell for a million years.
Miami was great, remember, in the early 2000s. And then OU and Texas kind of like ran football, college football, and USC, 03, 04, 05. Like, those were the main teams. Auburn gets left out of a BCS national championship as an undefeated, which is crazy, right? Like, to think of that now. And that Florida win over Ohio State changed the whole conversation of college football dramatically for the next decade and a half. For 15 years, it was totally different. Maybe even more, 22 years, 23 years until Michigan won.
I think you're right. Yeah, because I don't think it was just the national championships. That the SEC was destroying those teams. And then it would be like the Sam Bradford, Oklahoma spread, Kevin Wilson. Like, how is this possible? Look at what they are doing. And it's like, no problem. Like, those were the kinds of games where you're going, this is different. And
that's right. And Bama just bludgeoning that Texas team that went to the national championship with Colt McCoy and injuring him. And, Oregon going to a couple of national championships in that run and just getting beat up. Now, one of them was by Ohio State, but, getting beat up. And it hasn't been until NIL and the transfer portal that talent started to disperse a little bit. And you looked at the draft in 2010 to 2020, it was just the SEC basically, and it played out on the field, and now it's just a little different.
I have two quick thoughts because I think I've kept you a little longer than I thought I was going to.
I just really enjoy this though. I love coming on your show.
We have to talk up Texas Tech here, just because if I'm a Texas Tech fan, I'm going, you guys went through all these teams and you haven't done it. That BYU game, I know it's a rematch. I don't see how they match up. I don't see how he looks so uncomfortable against him. And look, it's sports, so things can change. But, they kicked 5 field goals. I think the number that I had when I ran through the 5 field goals, it was like an average distance of 21 yards.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They left 1,000,000 points on the field for a game they completely dominated. And
it wasn't close. It was not close.
Like, I don't think BYU has a chance in the rematch just because of what I saw that afternoon in Lubbock. And I think Texas Tech I don't think it's crazy to say they're at any of these, the level of any of these SEC contenders just because of what they bring defensively and the fact that Morton, you can see, like they didn't make the switch to Hammond, even though it felt like Hammond gave him a little bit more juice in that Utah game when Morton got hurt. You could even, if you wanted to get into some of the seeding stuff, argue, hey, Tech in their one loss against Arizona State was when Hammond started because Morton was out. But it's clear that McGuire just trusts the hell out of Morton, and this defense shows up every single week.
So I said earlier this year, and I called that Utah game when they went up there and just beat Utah up in Salt Lake, which
it was a weird game. It was a weird game.
It was, but man, they just beat them up physically.
Yeah. No doubt.
And
it was like the first 20 minutes, you're like, what is going to happen to this game?
Yeah.
Right. It was just, go ahead.
And I said in the subsequent week, I would not be shocked if Tech is in the Final Four, if they're in the national semifinal. I still feel that way. And I would absolutely take that into consideration, what you mentioned about not having their quarterback in their only loss of the season. If they were to beat BYU on Saturday, I believe they absolutely should get a top 4 seed. I really believe that. That is an excellent team. Couple of things on them is they are really good where you need to be good in order to win at the top end in the playoff, which is defensive line. They can rush the passer. They brought in those transfers in there, and they've got a great linebacker in Jacob Rodriguez. So in the front on defense, they can hold up. And that's one of the reasons why BYU is going to have such a hard time, is because they can't just run LJ Martin 30 times and win the line of scrimmage against Texas Tech. That's unavailable to them against Texas Tech, which puts the game on Bear Bachmeier's shoulder, which is limited. Let's just face it. Like they need the element of the run, the play action, the run action pass, and those types of things. The Tech offense, I also really love and appreciate. And let me tell you why. Mac Leftwich is their offensive coordinator. And Mac and I'm thankful for this. We sat down for a long time before that Utah game, and he started walking me through his background and his philosophy. This is what I love about my job, Ryan, is that I get to do something like this. And Mac was talking to me about being with Eric Morris and all of these different guys. And he said, what's great about my opportunity is I've had the opportunity to take parts and pieces of 3 of the great college football offenses and meld it into what I think is my offense. So he's taken parts of the deep choice offense that Art Briles and Josh Heupel have made famous, this deep choice passing game that the wide receivers have the opportunity to go deep or hook up. And he's implemented that. You can call it the almost a run and shoot, if you will. He's also implemented the Gus Malzahn style spread running attack. So that's his running attack. And then he's got the principles of the short passing air raid system of Mike Leach and Lincoln Riley. And he's married all 3 of these together. And I think it provides answers. Whereas every one of those offenses in their purity and in their purest form has struggled winning at the absolute top end of college football. I think that when you marry them together and you have answers for what a team could potentially do to you in a playoff matchup, that's one of the reasons I think Texas Tech has a great chance. That's an excellent team. I firmly believe that they're going to beat BYU this week, which is one of the reasons why I don't talk about BYU much. And I should, and I feel bad about it. I just don't think that team can beat Texas Tech.
We agree. And most years, I'm always defending Whittingham and his unit out of Salt Lake and just going like, hey, people are overlooking them. And I can't get over the coin toss at quarterback with Dampier, where I'm like, what's this going to look like today?
Yeah.
So, oddly enough, too, it felt like after the K-State game and them coming back and winning that, I was kind of like, all right, why is the committee so in love with this team? But they are.
Well, the advanced metrics are in love with them. If you look at Sagarin and S&P Plus and those, like those analytical, they still love Utah.
Well, there's another dangerous conversation. You could say this committee, the specific committee in 25, is more married to some of these metrics when you start looking at their rankings coming out and then looking at some of the stuff. I know that you've touched on, I've seen it elsewhere where it's kind of damning. You're like, what is going on in there?
They are in love with 2 things, and neither of them are resume specific. They don't actually care about resume and matchups on the field. They care about advanced analytics and eye test. Like those are the 2 things running the day of this committee.
but in theory, like that should matter. But there's always like every time I see something in the teens where I go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like why would you think? But nobody cares because it's not the top 12. It's not any of the seeding stuff. But the numbers, would you agree it feels like the 25 group feels more married to the numbers than some of the other years? And maybe I'm just recency biased this stuff, but
I've said that I think that this committee is more eye test, which is why Notre Dame is so much further separated from Miami.
yeah, I think that's the one though. All right, so let's finish on that. What would you argue in the room then if you were on the committee?
You have to go with on the field results. Why are we playing the games if we are not going to honor the on field results? I'm sorry. I know that Notre Dame is a really bad non-holding call and the best catch of the year away from being an undefeated. I totally understand that. It just so happens that this team that has two bad losses at SMU and against Louisville at home beat them. So to me, I'm sorry, that game has to matter, or else why are we playing the game? So, the head-to-head matchup, if Miami gets left out, I feel awful for them.
Would you have ranked Miami ahead of Notre Dame after week 11?
No. Because I think
right, but
I do. This is why it sucks, is because
this is the thing that there's no way.
Like, who wins a neutral this weekend? I would say, Notre Dame wins a neutral this weekend. But like, there's still, Miami beat them. Miami won the game.
I really struggle with it. I put Notre Dame ahead of them because I think they're better.
I have
think
too.
CJ Carr.
You can go to my poll right now, and I've got them ahead of Miami, and then I'm sitting here being like, Miami has to be right,
Hey, but like the committee, after the conference championship games, we have the right to re-rank it on Sunday and come to a new 12. We get to do it every single week, just like they do.
I'll just go back to what I told you like 20 minutes ago. I want that on the field this weekend. I want more games this weekend. I want the play-in weekend to happen rather than just these conference championship games, which are, by the way, outdated and maybe too penal. Like, if Bama loses, are we really going to throw them out?
Well, based on what the committee did last year, again, and the only sample that we have 1 year of what they did with SMU because of a close loss against Clemson, it felt like, and it also felt like some of the messaging was that, because it's my old Big 12 thing, is that the Big 12 ended up getting rid of the conference championship game because it felt like every year that hosed them, because they would have had a team playing for a national championship. And it's like, no, you got to play one extra game here. And then it's like, well, this is stupid, where it's either a chance to screw up your season or a chance to prove yourself all over again. It felt like some of the messaging when it expanded to 12 was that they didn't want to be as punitive to the team that lost the conference championship game as we would have in previous playoff formats. But you're right. Like, that Bama conversation is going to get really weird if that opens up a slot. Like, what if they just get, look, it could happen. What if they got their ass kicked?
Right. Like, what in the event Georgia wins this thing like 34-9, and it's just not very close.
Yeah, it's a mess of a game. Like, it would have to be a little, like, a couple turnovers in there.
Yeah, that's right. A turnover here or there, and Gunner's running around, and he plays amazing. And then Texas is sitting there like, well, they lost to OU. We beat OU. Like, hey, what are we doing? Come on. What are we doing? We both have 3 losses. I don't know what you would do at that point. This is why I don't love that our sport lives in a committee room. I don't want our sport in a boardroom. I want it on the field.
We'll see you on the field. Big Ten championship. How excited are you for this? I can't wait.
Oh, dude, it's my first 1-2 game ever in my career. So, So I cannot wait. And I think that they'll both be jacked up. It's going to be sold out. Those Indiana fans, it's right in their backyard. So they are going to be raring to go.
It's an awesome stadium.
Number 1 seed on the line. I also really believe, I think the Heisman is 100% on the line. Winner gets it.
I was pushing for Jeremiah Smith based on if this award is about the best player in college football, then everybody thinks he is. But then, look, he missed the game. He had 22 snaps. Wasn't the UCLA game. They just didn't need him. So I couldn't back it up. I don't like the default to, hey, let's give it to the quarterback on the best team. That seems to be a theme for a lot of voters. But I actually do think Sayin is better than everybody else, so I'm okay with it. So if he ends up with it, it's fine. I don't think a Pavia vote is the wrong vote, though. If that was the mentality that you have about who's actually the most important guy to his program.
That dude is just an absolute gamer, man. I said earlier in the year, he reminds me of a bit of Max Duggan. Remember, Max would just like will his team to victory. Didn't always look pretty, but it's like that's kind of what I get from Pavia.
Yeah, I said Manziel, but only in the sheer like shock of the defensive players, because they can watch all the tape, they can watch, and then they're out there with him, and they're like, oh, it's just whatever I thought I had for closing speed on him. It's just
I don't have
enough.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
And there's like a sprinkle magical dust out there. It's like, how did he do that? How does he have the confidence to do what he just did?
Yeah, if I were on the defense at Tennessee, I'd never want to watch that film over after what they did.
No.
Look, man, you're one of our favorites. Just appreciate the job that you and Gus do with Fox every single week. And there's a lot of time today, so thanks for taking an hour out of the week.
No doubt. I appreciate you as well. I love coming on this show. I would love to do it before the draft, as we get all set for the draft, and we can talk about these boys.
Come on as much as you want, man. We'd love to have you.
Love it. I love it. Right. Have a great day, dude.
You too. Joel Klatt Show. Check out his podcast and subscribe to that. And again, gear up for Ohio State, Indiana, #1 against #2. The holidays are here. Get what you need fast with Wayfair. From bedding and linens to decor for every room in the house, Wayfair's your one-stop shop. Last-minute guest prep? Refresh your guest room with bedding, throw pillows, and accent chairs for way less. I remember my first throw pillow experience. I was like, what are those? They're not for bed, but they're just there. But then you get the right throw pillow and your entire relationship with adulthood changes. You're like, hey, I know what you're thinking. Hey, these are just kind of in the way. But have you noticed sort of the muted tones of the couch with a different gray playing off the brown background of some of the cabinetry? You know what would lighten up this entire room? Some throw pillows with perhaps aggressive patterns or a slightly warmer color to it. It can really tie the entire room together. I don't know about any of that stuff until Wayfair. I'm buying throw pillows as backups. They're not even getting any innings right now. They're just hanging around ready to go if I want to change up the sight lines. This is all possible for you too. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your home goals and gift list with endless inspiration for every space and budget. Find all your must-haves from furniture and decor to appliances and cookware all in one convenient place. Fast and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, so you can get what you need when you need it. No more huge delivery fees for furniture. Get big stuff like sofas, dining tables, beds, desks, and more. Ship free. Get last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Here's my top 12 of college football. I don't feel great about it. I think I probably say that every single week. I promise I'm not doing it because I see a lot of guys out there with their top 12. They're like, this is it. If you disagree, it's stupid. I just think there's a lot of stuff that's open to debate on this. There's no debate about who's #1 and #2. Ohio State continues to prove something I've started to believe the last few weeks, the best quarterback in all of college football. How about our guy, Quincy Avery? His two guys. I'd forgotten. I talked to him this weekend about some other quarterback. His guys, Sayin and Dante Moore. Two of my favorites. Two of the guys that I actually trust on 3rd and long, which is not a long list in college football. There's a guy, the freshman who played for Mississippi State. My guy, he had a throw on the right sideline. I may even share the clip later on. But, I might not because he's a freshman. It was his first start in a rivalry game. But he was so locked into the receiver wasn't even there, and he made the throw. Speaking of struggling young quarterbacks, I had a real issue with this Michigan ranking and their limitations. And, going into this game, you're like, the only way Michigan's going to win this game is it just ends up being stupid. Like there has to be a bunch of monumental screw-ups here by the Buckeyes that we had last year. And Sayin throws probably one of the worst, considering the game, maybe the worst single pass he's thrown all season long. Throws a pick very early on. The rest of the game was total domination. Underwood, I thought, had 2 good throws, and I'm giving him a good on a ball he threw in the left seam that he threw it kind of high, which he's done all season long, but it was a completion. There was a 3rd and 8 where he had 2 routes to the left that were actually decent options. And even look at him, he just threw it right down to the running back, 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It's like, hey, now you have to get 11 yards with the defense all in front of you. So good luck. Bo Jackson, running back for Ohio State, has been a beast here second half of the season, 329 yards last 3 weeks. Indiana, did you know that they played Purdue Friday night? They did, and they killed them. Number 3. So I was actually tempted to put Oregon here. But this is where it becomes, hey, sometimes I think this team is better than that team, and then sometimes I feel like the resume is undeniable. I'm going to go with Georgia 3. They've got 4 ranked wins now. Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas. Georgia Tech was 23. We'll see what happens in the committee rankings. Georgia Tech still actually 24th in the AP because 19, 20, 21, 22, and Georgia Tech, all of those teams lost this weekend. But the passing offense for Georgia just feels like a fatal flaw. So even though we got excited about the Texas game with Stockton, but if you really look at some of those touchdown passes, they weren't like the toughest throws. I mean, they were there and he made them, so that's great. But that's Stockton's worst game of the season against Georgia Tech. He was 11 of 21, 70 yards, a 25 QBR, and as much as we love the jerseys and what Kirby has done, winning basically 11 games every year, playing in the SEC title game, what is it, 7 out of 8 years, 8 out of 9 years? It's just ridiculous what he's done. That passing offense is, I think it is what it is at this point. It's not something you're going to be able to bank on, even if it feels like that defensive front has gotten after it more the last month, looking a little bit, that part of it looks a little bit more like Georgia. But with those 4 ranked wins, that's just better than what Oregon has. So I put Oregon for the toughest last month maybe of any team. I haven't gone through all the bad teams in the Big Ten, but that was a tough stretch by Big Ten standards to close the month at Iowa, USC, and then Washington, who's, good. They're not great, but they're good. And, you're looking at Oregon's close here. And speaking of closing, like Indiana played. And look, I think Indiana's terrific, so this isn't the 24 conversation. But Indiana closes, if you look at scoring margin nationally, they close playing number 129 in scoring margin, 126, 107, 92, and 129. That's the close other than the Penn State game, whose scoring margin is actually okay because of the work they did in the beginning of the year. Number 5, Texas Tech. They finished number 2 in opponent's yards per play. Number 1's Ohio State. Their only loss is with Will Hammond, who was in for Morton. Against Arizona State, an Arizona State team that day with Leavitt showed up and put up some yardage in a way that Tech has not allowed all season long. So if you were in the committee and you wanted to start messing with that stuff a little bit, you could, depending on what happens with some of these other games, go like, hey, look, and their only loss, technically their starting quarterback didn't play in that one. Number 6, A&M. I know it's kind of popular now to go like, hey, was this team any good? That is ridiculous. I would say the only thing I try to do is warn you a bit about Marcel Reed and that there was some high risk stuff in there that they probably didn't need based on his running ability and their defense and their corners. And there's just so much I like about the A&M personnel, but I just felt like the Reed Heisman stuff, which is probably over now, was a little bit too. It was kind of like a hype game. You have Reed, who had all the hype recently, and then of course Archie Manning, the Heisman favorite, hype in the beginning of this one. It feels a bit like quarterback win analysis with Arch in this game. He was terrific in the third quarter. He wasn't really at all in the first half. I didn't think he was special at all. He was 14 to 29 in the game. So the hyped up quarterback stuff here, but A&M finally losing a game where it prevented them because of the tiebreakers of playing in the SEC championship game. Number 7, Ole Miss. That was a busy week. This never made any sense with the Lane Kiffin thing. It's like, if he was staying, doesn't he already say that? Like, I think finally people on Saturday started to realize, like, I guess he's probably not going to stay, because that would be even fucking weirder to drag this whole thing out. And we could sit there and say, oh, he was running until the last minute. He was trying to just, use all of his leverage. At some point, the deals are all on the table. And that point, look, Lane knew he was going to LSU a week ago. All right. That's why I hinted at it when I said when he gets announced or whatever. The whole thing's gross. It's a gross part of college football. I can totally understand LSU, wanting their guy in the building as soon as possible. Also, let's not kid ourselves. They love the idea that they're fucking up Ole Miss's season, potentially. Him wanting to coach the rest of the way. I could also see Ole Miss going like, we don't want you in the building, picking off all of these guys for the transfer portal to bring them to Baton Rouge. So this is the way business is done. There's plenty of things in life you're like, that's how that works? Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. So I'm not going to get in a huge rant on the whole thing because, people can talk about college football commissioners. And I know we did some of this stuff with Klatt, and I guess I'm repeating myself, but no one in college football wants one person to tell them what they can or can't do. And that's why I'm going to repeat it. Number 8, Oklahoma. Knew that LSU game was probably going to be ugly, and Mateer's 3 interceptions provided that. This offense is now 99th in yards per play. They're 90th in yards per attempt. They're 100th in yards per carry. So they didn't even, Mateer has not been the same guy. I've been on this the entire time. It's a bit like the Arch thing. They win. Everybody starts going, man, this guy's really figured it out. And you're like, he's okay. The same thing happened with a couple of these Oklahoma wins. Now, the odd thing with this offense is Oklahoma is the only team that scored on 100% of the red zone trips in all of college football. But look, there's plenty of teams that are in the 90s when you factor in this is not a touchdown percentage. It's just a scoring percentage, including all the field goals. But if you're shitting on Oklahoma because of the offense, Danny Cannell, imagine if the committee did that. That resume is pretty outstanding. And they're 8th in the country, despite being 6th in the SEC. But I just don't like the way they pass. Yeah, let's get BYU in there. You could hate the Sooners. You could hate everything about Norman, all of it. You could have voted for Jokic for MVP instead of SGA. All right. But in the annual tradition of no one has played anyone, Oklahoma's resume, you can't fuck with this. They played 6 ranked teams at the time they played them. All right. So sure, you want to take Auburn out of there? Fine. But if you want to mess with the rest of the schedule after those 6 ranked matchups at that time, the unranked teams that they played, they close out beating LSU. And I know LSU was a mess, but at one point that team was number 3. We're doing the Penn State rule here applies. Hey, that team's super disappointing. Yes, but at some point people were also picking them to win a national championship. So there's clearly enough people on that team to think that maybe one Saturday they're going to be able to compete. When they played Texas wasn't even ranked. And the South Carolina win, which, granted, Carolina's a huge disappointment. I think they're second to last in the SEC now. At one point, they were number 11 with 3 first-rounders running around. So, look, I know the offense stinks, but if you're going to give them a hard time, then you're being completely unfair. All right, number 9, number 10, number 11. Notre Dame, Bama, Miami, in that order. This is the type of deal where if I were in the room and somebody said, hey, the head-to-head with Miami, Notre Dame, that matters. And I would say, okay, that's fine. I can't argue to the death with you on that one. I do think Notre Dame's the better team. I definitely think they're better than Alabama. Miami finished strong with that win at Pitt, a good Pitt team, not great, 38-7, which I'll admit probably you, like me, was wondering Miami's going to bitch like crazy. That fan base thinks everyone's out to get them, that only bad things happen to them. For 2 weeks now, nothing would be funnier than them going up to Pitt and losing. But they did not do that. They won. They closed this thing out. And I think the committee, to think that there's at least, this might be the maddening thing for Hurricanes fans, is so wait, Notre Dame's ahead of us, but they're also in a group ahead of us. We're not even at their level. And I do wonder, with Miami losing the way they were losing in the middle of the season, with the committee just getting started, if everybody had just turned on them, and again, the massive disappointment of oh, here we go again, and Beck isn't good, and this whole thing's, they started off the season, the resume stuff is just better than what Notre Dame has. This is the dumb part about, Notre Dame's 2 losses are better than Miami's losses, when it's yeah, one of them was to us. So I'm still putting Notre Dame ahead of them because I think they're the best of those 3 teams. But if you were in the room screaming at me, I wouldn't tell you that you were wrong. All right. But at least we've got them ahead of BYU. And the infatuation with football out of Utah by this committee. Number 12, I'm going to put Vandy in here. This is where we need to not be record whores. And I'll use an example. Michigan being ranked ahead of Texas going into this last weekend because they have the extra loss. That's when you're what are you guys watching? What are you possibly watching? Are you just looking at a 2 and looking at a 3 and going, oh, well, I got to put this team here. And look, I'm not even arguing for Texas to be in the playoff because even with the 3 top 10 wins, which is ridiculous on the resume, it's not even just the Florida loss, which I think is probably a slightly better loss than maybe anyone else talking in front of a microphone. But it's that, there's the Kentucky game. There's a couple of the non-conference games. Like, there's a lot of moments here with Texas where it's like, what is wrong with this team? Despite the fact that when they needed to get up for some of their biggest games, they got up for them. So I'm not putting Texas there. I'm putting Vandy there. I think that win at Tennessee is a good win. I know Tennessee now has way too many losses for anyone to accept that might be a tough team to beat. What they did in the second half and what Pavia has done in the last 4 weeks, like, this guy is ridiculous. He is impossible to deal with. I mean, it does remind me a lot of like thinking you have Vic bottled up and you don't. Some of the stuff with Manziel. I remember that Florida game against A&M and talking to Muschamp after, and he was just like, yeah. And Muschamp's line to us was like, I tried to tell our guys, like, you've got to be ready for him. And it feels like even this late into the season, whenever you're playing against Pavia, the defenses just look like, what is this guy doing? Like, why can the worst thing you can do against a guy like Pavia is get upfield with your pressure? Because as soon as your ends are at the side and the middle is open, he's gone. And then he can hit you with his arm too. So I hope he's in New York as a Heisman finalist. It feels like there's more momentum for him actually winning the Heisman now than certainly at any other point of the season. And if you're really going by like, hey, who's the best player or who's the most important player, like, he's going to get a ton of first place votes with this. So that's my top 12.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari, 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice, rr@gmail.com. That is the email to fix your life. Kyle just said something before we started taping this. Said something about a vision board. I don't see you as a vision board guy. Do you have one? Because that would be amazing.
No, I don't. Things would probably have to get real bad for me to start pulling out stuff like that.
Or real good.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not a write-off guy. I'll try anything.
I love that about you.
I feel like this pod, there's not a lot we're not like gimmick guys. Like, we're kind of just straightforward, straight shooters. We don't do like the bullshit stuff. Like, there's not a lot of self-help going on here. There's not a lot of like strategy of like life, not a lot of self-help books in general. But I've never also dabbled in a vision board. Probably wouldn't. Things have to get pretty bad to do that.
I did something vision board adjacent.
When?
Probably like 10 years ago.
I was going to say, there's no way it was recent.
So he's like, yeah, 10 years ago, I could totally see that. You were kind of.
What was the scenario? I mean, you were at ESPN?
Yeah.
This would have been
in the home stretch kind of
days.
Right.
Was this like, how do I get on Countdown?
NBA Countdown? No, I would have never put a vision board up for that.
Okay.
I'm realistic about who I am at ESPN. I think that's one of the things that I'm.
More coast to coast hits?
I did get on some of that coast to coast stuff. There was a few hits on that.
Yeah.
Because I used to love that show just as before I even worked at ESPN. I used to kind of love that probably before I could afford League Pass, although I probably always found a way. I mean, League Pass, look, if it's your job, you can figure out a way to pay the $189. But I used to love they would kind of just cut in and out. It was like a red zone thing. Do you remember the show? Like, this is a long time ago. I think it was like on Tuesdays. And then I don't know if that's what the new Peacock thing of ramping that up on Tuesdays. Are they calling it coast to coast? I think they are. I got to tell you, a quarter of the way into the season, there's some nights I sit on the couch where I'm still a little lost. Yeah. Where am I going again? And thank God I have that global NBA app because that saved my ass in London to be able to watch games that I needed to keep caught up in because, I mean, it wasn't going to work with anything else. But
so do you have to be out of the country to fire that thing up?
No, I could watch it.
Okay.
Here in the States, Guam, for the most part. Yeah, I think I'm good.
We've strayed too far away from the vision board thing. So I'm just going to steer us back on track. What was on the vision board? Like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Well done. Needed it. It was a beach house in Manhattan Beach. I just put it on my phone.
No way.
Dreams come true,
man.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Huh.
I just saw a listing I liked that I was just not even in the scope of possibility. I just hung that up on the fridge for a couple
All right.
years.
I'm sold. All right.
That's my
never,
point.
Never mind. I take it all back.
Yeah. I would love to get a vision board. Maybe that could be something we all do in 26, get some vision boards going.
Just talk about it on the pod. What Kyle, what's on the
Maybe
vision
we
board
could
for
make
you
it its own pod.
Just dudes talking about their ambitions.
Anyway, I interrupted you, Kyle. What were you going to say?
What's on my vision board? Probably a 26 Forerunner, maybe an XL size sweatshirt. That'd be good.
Like that.
$5 pack of smokes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that a piece of shit like that. But yeah, definitely a nice car. Maybe a
not a piece of shit.
2,000 square foot house there. Central air. Yeah. Okay.
Wait,
nice bulkhead.
Did the Mustang make its way across the country?
No. I'm done with that 13-mile a gallon monster. No.
That saga has ended.
Yeah, so we're looking for. There's not a ton of great deals on the Forerunners. I think people just want them, but the Broncos are talking about 0% APR. So, I'm basically ping ponging between one of those two.
So you're in the market right now for a car.
Oh yeah, big time.
Greater Poughkeepsie area. Okay.
Big time. Ignoring calls every day because you got to put in inquiries to see what's there, and then they're just like, "Great, we'll call you every day for the rest of your life."
Yeah,
so
that's not great.
I signed up for this, I guess, but
you did. Okay, let's read some emails here. Let's see. We got a lot of gym ones. Can I just do a quick gym story because we have time?
Yeah,
I think that's in our contract. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the other day at the gym, I wasn't doing bench. It wasn't that day, but I noticed another guy doing bench, and he's fascinating. I wanted to meet him. I would have even potentially interviewed him like on a Wednesday show or something. And he threw on 225, and he had some unk type energy to him, so you never really know. Like you're looking at his body and you're like, is this guy going to throw around 225? Like, damn, he's got some old man strength. Maybe he was in the Navy.
Tucked in shirt,
80s.
maybe to some
something,
to some gym pants.
Yeah, and he had some like arm braces going on. So I was like, all right, this is interesting. And again, we might make shirts that say, watch your own reps or focus on your reps or whatever. Maybe that'd be part of the vision board podcast arm that we get into.
Yep.
But I was using a machine near him, so he was in my shot. I was like, I gotta see what's gonna happen here. And it's pretty much like a known thing too. Like if you can bench a certain number and you see another guy, you're gonna watch. Like it'd be better if we didn't, but it's kind of inherently like what guys will do. Somebody throws 315 on, you're like, all right, I want to see. And if the guy rips out 7 or 8 reps, you're just like, hey, that's a different level. Like that's a tier that you can't even worry about that guy. You're not competing with him. But if he gets it once or twice, you're like, okay, whatever. So this guy gets under 225 and he starts like feeling it, right? Starts like spinning the bar in his hands, getting his calluses worked up in the neurals, right? And he's just like feeling it. And then he gets off the bench. Never took it off.
Huh.
He didn't have it that day.
No. Left his towel, left his bottle, went over to the cables, used that. The cables are the most, you can never get in. Like, I got to make an appointment to use that fucking thing. He goes over to the cables and he sits back down on the bench. And I was like, now I'm totally in. Like, I want to see a documentary on this guy. And he just starts touching it and he's feeling it. He kind of like pulls it off a little bit and then sets it back down on the rack. And I was like, this guy's he wants his body to get comfortable with the weight. Like
the gym version of a vision board, really.
Yeah,
really,
exactly. Well done, Kyle. I was going to say that at the close of this, but you got it in. No, that's okay. That's okay. Your instincts are too good now. Trained you. Well, that's what he did. He just touched it. It was like he was window shopping at the bench press. And then he finally did pull it off. And I would say the rep was the equivalent of saying we're driving cross country and making it to Pittsburgh and turning it around.
Okay. Huh.
But exactly your point, Kyle. I think in his head, he was like, the only way I'm going to do a rep at 225 is if I just got to feel it. I got to get out there, touch it.
Just metal to palm.
Yeah.
I'll just know it when I feel it.
And he took up about 30
him?
fucking minutes. No. 30 minutes. Busy morning. Fucked up all sorts of other dudes' routines. Guys started making eye contact with each other, being like, are you watching this? But instead of anybody saying anything to him, no one wanted to stop. It was the opposite. It was like, we want to keep seeing this happen, and I hope he does it again.
Is there any chance this guy was just looking for one of you guys to help him with a spot because he wasn't sure if he could actually do it, and you guys were all just looking at him, judging him, and he's like, hey, he's maybe too self-conscious to ask somebody because he didn't know anybody. Because why would you not have a spotter if you don't know you could do 225? Isn't that terrible? Like, that's terrifying.
I feel like the armbands would give away that guy's not afraid to ask for a spot, right? Like you just said, his general getup, maybe, I guess.
I think the Ultimate Warrior would ask for a spot.
All right.
I don't think he wanted a spot. This guy had like George Pickens type confidence.
Okay. That's good then. All
right. Email time. New friend has a secret podcast. 35 years old, 5'11", 175. No gym stats. Player comp. Righty Joe Ingles. Jingle juice. Thorough. Hey, fellas. My wife and I take our 20-month-old daughter to a great new place in town that offers children's music classes, art classes, other similar things. Through these classes, we've met a few couples that we sparked up quite a quick friendship with. Okay. Perhaps the fastest growing friendship has been with this one dude. Let's call him Tony. Our daughters are born one day apart, which got us talking. Eventually, I found out he's a big UFC guy, and he actually knows his stuff, which is shockingly hard to come by. Every time I see him, we chat about the fights that went down that weekend. At this point, we've actually had his family over for dinner. We like them. They like us. All was going well. ... 4 dots. Whoa. Until my wife went deep diving on Tony and found out that he's a host of a podcast. This is not a sports or pop culture pod. No. This is a podcast about cryptids. Kyle, can we get some visuals on cryptids?
Google.
Yeah.
Wait,
of course.
Like hold on.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
Those aren't like the aliens, are they? The cryptids are those like the lizard people?
Yeah. Of course, I looked it up. A cryptid is a creature whose existence has not been proven by science. We're talking Bigfoot, something called Dogman and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I turned into one episode, and Tony shares some experiences, also interviews people about their experiences with the supernatural. I got to tell you, if Tony's pod is like one of the top 5 cryptid things, this is going to make its way back to Tony, so you may have just exposed yourself. And I don't know, fucking with these guys. Oh.
It's true. They know things that we just don't know.
Yeah, I'm not even sure we should have read this email. I just don't really know how to proceed with the friendship. He's never brought up the podcast to me. You know what? I think that's a great sign that he hasn't brought up the pod. I don't think it's a deal breaker for me that he has a podcast about this topic, but I also recognize it's pretty fucking weird. Do I bring it up? Do I wait for him to? Will he not think I'm chill anymore because I don't believe in Bigfoot? Please help me out. Thanks, guys. All right.
I think it's kind of cool. I'm going to be honest with you. I've dabbled into like an hour long, not hours, maybe aggressive, but like some YouTube videos where like, do I believe that this stuff is real? No. But am I entertained by it? Absolutely. I've watched Ancient Aliens. Like, this stuff is insane, but it's entertaining. So I don't know. I actually don't think this is a red flag at all. I don't think you bring it up to him. If he wants to bring it up to you, that's fine. But like, this isn't like, if we're talking, friendship deal breakers, this isn't a deal breaker to me at all. Like this, maybe the guy's got a little fun personality. If he takes it too seriously and starts like trying to get you into the, to convince you on this stuff and go into conspiracy theories, maybe it's a little bit weird. But I don't know. For now, it's just like a fun hobby, and I don't know. Dudes could do worse things.
Yeah, in this day and age, I don't think it's insane for a buddy to have like a secret podcast or some sort of thing in that sphere. Maybe he's been working on an album for 8 years. This guy has a podcast instead. But yeah, and the topic it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure I've clicked like into a Wikipedia link and then clicked several other like Wikipedia links through that entry and maybe spent an hour on this stuff. He's just a little bit more passionate about it. What if it was movies? I don't think. Just think of it as movies. Maybe poke around in his garage and see if he has like have a garage beer with him and see if he's got like a Bigfoot scanner or like a spirit detector. Like see how much it is, or maybe it's just like a hobby that he's using to use some of that time in the house. I don't know, but I don't think the topic is too bad. Like, I don't think it's a bad space that he's exploring.
How far does it go though? Like, is he also a flat Earth guy? You know, like, are there other things that he might just be into that you're just like, hey, this is a deal breaker? If it's just like, hey, I kind of host a scripted podcast, like Finding Bigfoot, we've talked about on the pod before, those ghost shows that they never find the ghost, but like, I don't know, I'll watch a couple episodes.
Just eating up innings on History Channel, yeah.
Yeah, just guys walking around with these instruments that probably aren't even real, but they're convinced you that they are real. I don't know, like
Portugal of shows.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think you cut him off. I don't think you cut him loose. I don't think you bring it up. But I don't know.
Have they listened? Did his wife listen, or she just found a link on one of his profiles?
How about her doing a deep dive on the guy, though? You know,
that's a wife thing. Though.
We're on the ground floor. You're 1 year old. We want to know if this is a long haul friendship or not. You know, so I don't.
Your wife does a full background check on any new person in the mix.
Well, I don't know that it's a background check. It's just, you know, she's an internet sleuth person. She knows how to use the Google the correct way, and she finds things, and you know, she'll find
photos,
like,
make sure there's nothing
so
crazy.
and so is not wearing a wedding ring, like, and she'll just do like beep beep beep, you know, going around, and all of a sudden there's like, you know, a bunch of evidence, and this has happened, and it's like, wow, you actually kind of were onto this. That's good. So yeah,
like, I actually
know.
remember that one time, like Ceruti and I were having, we were having one of our daily updates, and then I got at the end, like, hey, by the way, so and so doesn't have a wedding ring on anymore in the photos.
I noticed that. Wasn't me.
I know you didn't. I mean, that was like the guy that emailed about the finger thing, you know? And then we had another guy follow up. I don't think I read the email, but he was like, I'm missing a digit. He's like, my wife noticed right away. He's like, guys just don't notice. I mean, that one actress in Slow Horses, I didn't realize there was something weird with her hands until season 4.
Fourth season. I had no idea. Yeah.
Nothing. Now I can't stop looking at him. Yeah, anyway.
So,
yeah, cryptids. My issue with the entire thing is, how come more people don't see it? And then whenever the photos like, oh, that's a 1912 picture of Champ from Lake Champlain, and then you realize like some dickhead with a flea market doctored some photo, and that way he wanted to increase tourism or something like that. In the aughts, and so I always am kind of like, you know, look, there needs to be updated evidence. Like, too much of this stuff happens I'm not like against believing that there could be something else going on, but yeah, to have it be a hobby, I don't know, man. You could also spin it like Lisa's passionate about something. I have a friend who's like this.
What if he's just talking about the legends of it? Like, what's the difference if you're really into Norse mythology? You're not suggesting that, you know, every raven is Odin or something, but you're just like this. Maybe he's just interested in the lore of it all.
Listen to it. I think you know what you do. You listen to an episode or two and see how insane it is.
I think you have to listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would be the line where you would be like, I don't want this guy around my kid anymore?
He's like, we're heading down to New Jersey on Saturday. There was a sighting on Wednesday. I think, you know, we've got a radius. I'll report back and let you know after a weekend in the Pine Barrens or something. I don't know.
Like a Twister version of this, but cryptids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a storm chaser for cryptids. Yes.
Or he like earnestly interviews someone that says they had a relationship with a chupacabra.
Right.
And he's serious. He's like, well, tell me, you know, are their emotions the same?
Yeah. The world is kind of interesting because like the world is just like less interesting now, because like think about back when dudes were like sailing what is it, what's the like below Africa there where it's like super dangerous, whatever, the Bermuda Triangle. Nobody talks about the Bermuda Triangle anymore. That was
Cape
like when
Horn?
I was growing up. Cape Horn, yeah. Like they used to think there were like Krakens in there and stuff, and now we just like know this stuff isn't kind of true, so it's kind of a bummer. But I don't know, sometimes it's kind of fun to just think, hey, what if we lived in a world where these things existed, like Mothman, Jersey Devil. I'm looking up some right now. Like, I don't know. I'm interested in the origin stories of those things. How do they come to be? Now, if you're like, this is definitively real and I'm going to find it, that's probably the line. But if it's like, hey, you know, what's the background of this creature? Is it possible that it's still alive, you know, or ever existed? You know, the dragon thing, doesn't that kind of blow your guys' minds? Why did several different cultures all across the world, they just all have dragons? They all and it just didn't exist, but they all knew about dragons. They didn't have any interaction with each other. That's kind of insane. No, I'm interested in that.
I think maybe, yeah, we should all take a listen. Maybe
yeah, why don't you just email us the podcast? Yeah, I'll take it a listen. I'll give it a listen.
Yeah, send a link. Send a link. Yeah. I mean, look, that dragon question just blew my mind. Now what do we do?
Right.
My guess is probably like one guy said he saw a dragon, and then sailors would tell of this story of a guy who saw a dragon, and then somebody else would draw it. And they had no TV, they had no podcast, they had nothing. It was just sailors from port to port, just handing down these legends, and then everybody just would believe all of it. That's my theory on a lot of these stories that have held up for thousands of years.
I'm not trying to turn into this guy's potential new friend, but these are the civilizations that had nothing. They had no contact with each other, and we've just found evidence of like drawings of things. You know?
Yeah, but you're ignoring my start of civilization lesson that I gave, where it was like, how come every single community had the same idea that there's this great flood coming? Because there was probably like one flood that wiped out one village, and then it was such a big fucking deal. Everybody talked about it all the time. And then as soon as somebody would start walking or would get in a boat, they would just be like, oh, the great flood, the great flood. Like all of these civilizations separated by thousands of miles, all believing in some version of the flood. I think that's I think that's the dragon equivalent.
Maybe we should start a podcast.
I think we just did.
We just become best friends.
Yeah. Getting into business with my basketball idol. Hey guys, 5'10", 165, a wannabe Eric Maynor on the pickup scene. Pass, get others involved early and often, but also a scoring threat to complement. Well, nice approach to life right there. I recently got in touch with a basketball legend of mine, my alma mater. All right, won't say the name. We have since developed somewhat of a friendly relationship. In all honesty, he was my basketball idol growing up. My initial business proposition to him consisted of starting a YouTube channel together to provide a platform for student athletes. For our school, our goals align fairly well, and we have plans to get together in the near future to put our ideas to the test and start doing and creating content. This would start small as a side project with hopes of becoming more of a full-time endeavor. I'm also currently unemployed, so this allows me to tap into a passion and see where it can go. My question to you guys is, with all the sports pods and channels in the current ether, is there a niche that you believe could be an opportunity for us to explore? I love running my mouth, but my counterpart is a bit on the shy side and probably prefers not to speak as much. This just seems like an opportunity of a lifetime that I cannot pass up. Appreciate any insights here. Side question, do you think it'd be kosher for me to bring his frame college jersey for him to sign? Not on the first episode, dude.
Yeah, after you ask him the welcome to the league moment, then maybe after you wrap that episode.
Yeah. Look, based on that email and specifically that last sentence, I'm worried that you might be a little too excited. But at the same time, like, you should be excited. This is your guy. Now you're going to build this relationship with him. But for this pod to have any kind of a chance and for him to probably open up or whatever, like, you've got to try to figure out a way to get past that. Now, look, first time I had Chris Mullin in studio, you want to tell me that I wasn't like a little fucking weird? You know?
Is like that the one guy?
Yeah, because Barkley called in. Like Mullen we had in studio, and Chris Mullen's the coolest motherfucker of all time. And he's sitting there and his phone goes off and it's New York by Jay-Z was his ringtone. And you're just like, what?
Yes.
Come on.
Like, God. Then there's another time he was like watching some guys play hoop and he took the ball and he like shot it off the side of a building and it went in one shot. And you're just like, dude, what? Who are these people walking among us? Mere mortals. So I get it. I'm not going to pretend that like I was numb to all of it, because there would be moments, there'd be times, especially early on, where I would be like, oh man, this is kind of exciting. But considering this is like your thing, it's you two guys, you have to find a way to like put that stuff to the side and make the content the best that it can be. And I would say the other part of that is, even if he's shy and you are a talker, people are going to be drawn to the podcast or YouTube channel because of him and not because of you. And you're going to have to find your way to make him the star. I dealt with that on all the shows. We used to do that massive baseball show with Steve Phillips. It was like this Sunday. I was Baseball Rye, just your guy all day on Sunday, cranking out the baseball content through all the day games. And the feedback that I got was, why is Ryan talking? Well, so although that one manager said on 3 different shows, he was like, why are you talking? I was like, you seem to have a theme with me. You seem to have a consistent theme that, I am a talk show host Anyway, so yeah, you're gonna have to figure out a way to make him a star. You're gonna have to figure out a way to treat him as a guy that you're doing a show with, as opposed to the guy that is your hero growing up. And I think it'd be kind of fun to maybe have that conversation 5 or 6 episodes in, right?
Yes.
Warm up to it. But I don't know what your experience is with this stuff. Like if you're just geeked out to be with your guy, maybe he's used to that. Maybe look, the name, I'm not going to share the name. It's not like this is fucking Michael Jordan here. Okay. This is
what level
something that means.
Could you give us like a level? Is he like a B list, C list?
Maybe a player comp?
Nothing in the pros of any significance whatsoever.
But big time college guy?
Even that, he's not a tier 1 college guy. Like of a tier 1 guy that didn't do anything in the NBA, he's not even that.
Okay, which isn't the end of the world. But the thing that concerns me is it sounds like you're trying to have to convince him to do this, and that's not a great place to start from.
Yeah, what was his level of interest?
Yeah, did he want to do this?
Like, was it like Chris Long, where he was like, I really like want to. Like when he started, he was like serious from the jump and like basically taking notes and basically had this whole goal, right, of like what he wanted to do in the future. And I feel like there's some people that are just like, maybe this is an avenue for me, and I'm not really sure, because it sounds like this thing might be, I don't know if is it charity-esque, like it's for student athletes. He was saying that's like, is it something through the school,
that's
or
the
it's
other thing
adjacent?
Too. Is
this a money thing, or is this
thing?
Yeah, is this a money thing? Is it going to hope to make money, or is it just like a project that's basically helping students?
How many student athletes seriously are? I think you have to ask. This isn't me being a dick, but like, seriously, how many student athletes do you know? Unless it's for businesses too, and like it's like the whole everyone could kind of come in and figure out how this is done. But how many people do you really think are going to be listening to this show? Like, I know if I was a college student and this was available, I probably wouldn't listen, because I was just like, I'm too cool for school. I'm like, I don't need this, I'll figure it out. Like it obviously has a very specific audience that may or may not even be that interested in listening to what you have to say, even if it's good content. So that's something you have to consider as well.
Yeah. I'm not a dream crusher here by any means, but I would just say, are you able to look over how pumped you are and get an accurate reading about how pumped he is? If we're talking about, I'm unemployed and I'm putting a lot of work into this right now.
You need something to do.
Yeah, see if your gauge is actually working. That's all.
Yep.
Yeah, and the best part, man, is no one can cancel your show.
Yeah, totally.
That's what's great about podcasting and YouTube channels and all that stuff. So if you haven't done it before, you're going to learn on the fly. The first show is probably going to be terrible. The 10th show is going to be so much better, just because you're starting from absolute zero. Fastest growing show in the country, right? when your rating is a 0, who's to say that you're not the fastest growing show in the country?
Number 1 on Apple Pods today.
Yeah. Number 1 in show rankings.
The cryptid
top 5 cryptid pod.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
In northeastern United States.
5 parts per episode. We're crushing. All right. Let's see. We have a lot of time based on today's taping schedule, so we're just going to give you.
I do one more.
Yeah. Well, one more. I feel like there was another one in here.
We need one more.
I just watched that.
Oceans.
Oh, God. It's just.
You did?
Man. Well, just rewatched it again I watched 1 and 2. There's an argument with my buddies. Like half of them think the second one, Ocean's 12, is bad, and the other half I think it's like the best one, which is interesting. I'm like, is it just because it's in Europe? Is that why? I think you rewatch it, you really have to turn your brain off a few times. I think we've talked about this.
Does everyone hate the third one?
I like the third one.
No.
The second one I feel like is the most like kind of brain dead one.
I like all of them, by the way.
Oh, I agree.
I think they're all good. I mean, the first one's off the charts, no doubt, but I've never had a bad time watching any of them.
Yeah, maybe the most rewatchable movies ever.
Makes me feel like my brain doesn't hit a certain frequency when people have all these nitpicks about movies that I like. I'm like, I just thought it was good. I don't have much else to say, but I'm just like, maybe I'm just dumb, because I don't get these nitpick things with these like trilogies and like picking better. Like I just like maybe
are you afraid you're dumb because you don't hate movies more? Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes I do. People have like real like nitty gritty stuff that they're like, I mean, it's ridiculous. And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of liked it. Maybe I'm just
look,
sheep,
think about,
I don't know.
With 10 years of The Ringer, right, Kyle? Like, listen to Fennessy and Ryan talk about movies. Like, I'll be in the car going, did I not watch the same fucking movie?
Yeah.
So
The
I
thing
don't-
about
I don't
Chris though
blame
that was
you.
great is Chris also liked bad movies though. Like there was that like I always thought that was cool. Like he and like they would do some like insane 80s and 90s movies. I'm like are these any good? Like you love this movie. It's crazy, and that's what I always liked about it.
Yeah.
Good
Anyway,
times.
yeah, good times. I watched
But no,
Snatch again the other day.
Love that.
It's been a minute.
It's so good. We were supposed to have Guy Ritchie on, I think. I don't know, I forget what happened. I think there was a time where we were definitely getting him, or he was offered, but then the taping didn't work out. And then there was like this 2-month, hey, I think we're getting Guy Ritchie this week or whatever. I would just love to know about like the mapping out of Snatch, where you were thinking of it and you had the main idea, and then it was just how many other characters, and like, do I need one more? Like, speaking of, hey, do you want one more?
Yeah.
Right? But just like, no, let's add in this, and then we'll have, it's hard to do. It's really hard to do that as well as they did it, to have that many characters all kind of own their moment that they're on TV, whether it's Bricktop, whether it's Boris. The whole reason I watched it again is that, is it
going to London?
Malevolence?
Did you watch it in London?
No. Yeah, I started walking
You want to
around
immerse yourself in the culture.
Yeah. Jenna's a tough guy. So, did you guys listen to the Travel Pod?
Yeah, I'm halfway through it.
Halfway. Didn't you edit it?
Yeah, you said there were no edits, right?
You said there were no edits.
I'd
I
imagine
did
there-
edit one. I edited one long pause where like your lights went out in the room, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like it might not supposed to be there." But
Yeah, the lights, I was so locked in, I wasn't even moving, and the motion lights in the hotel went off. So I was like,
yeah,
all right, this
I
isn't gonna
cut
work.
that one. Cut that one.
I think I yelled, leave it in.
You did, but I didn't.
Kyle's got that. Yeah, he knows better.
That sex club thing was a huge, I don't even want to call it a letdown, because it wasn't like I was like wanting to watch people bang in a hallway. I didn't, because like there's another place that somebody told me about, and I was like, I was like,
You want
even
that
in
sort of
my
thing?
even in my 20s, I don't think I'd be like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Right?
I've never understood that. Like, hey, you and a buddy want to go and watch? Like, nah, I'm good, dude. Thanks.
I think it has to just be for the entire sake of like saying that you did it.
But isn't
There's
it
a
weird to
story
say
there,
that
yeah.
you did that? Like, I just have always found that, like, you would tell people that, hey, guess what I did yesterday?
Well, I don't
and-
know that I'd
Me and
start.
Brad, sex
Yeah.
club, just watched. No touching.
Yeah. Not that great.
I would
as
imagine
as
not.
if somebody was on the fence about
What
it.
do you do next? Yeah, what happens after that?
I got to tell you though, the place, the help, staff, top marks,
Class.
nice.
class, all the way around. All right, I think I paused long
We
enough.
read an
here.
email. Yeah, I don't even know where we were.
I don't know. I don't even know what the show is right now. Do we do a simple one here?
Did we?
Let's
we
stay
didn't
on the
just read
travel.
one, right?
Let's stay on the travel thing. 5'10", 48 years old, basketball comp, Nadav Hennefeld. Dude, love that. Thank you for just saying his name. Just heard Ryan may travel to Japan. I've lived in Japan 8 years, 5 years in Tokyo, 3 in Nagano. Since you asked for my input, I like how we did that. 1, definitely take the time to do an onsen, hot spring, outside Tokyo. Hakone, I don't know. That sounds Hawaiian, so maybe it's Hakone, is a good choice. Kabukicho deserves a walkthrough just to see the scale of what a red light district can be. Well, look, fresh off of Soho, not afraid. Golden Guy nearby is both the most touristy and the most Japanese thing you can visit. 3, if you drink in the neighborhoods like, my Japanese is terrible right now.
I dare you.
Roppongi.
Sure.
That's what I'm going to go with. And pay for your drinks with a credit card. Be careful if someone's spiking your drink. Never fly solo. Well, that sounds like a great fit for me. At work, we used to warn the visiting business travelers. It never mattered. Everyone came back with stories about getting drugged and robbed. It's a big problem compared to other Asian cities, Hong Kong, Singapore. They key on out-of-towners paying with a credit card. Well, that would be me. So maybe we do stay away from that town.
Good note.
When I was in Cabo, one of my friends was like, "Are you by yourself again?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Be careful. They're doing this thing down there where they're like running your credit card and then saying they didn't go through or whatever. And then it's like the local sheriff is involved. Next thing you know, you're in jail for like 3 days." It's like 3 days.
Doesn't seem like something a tourist place would be promoting, but I don't know.
Well, he was like, "I know you. Like you're going to wander and, check out the non-taco stand T-shirt place." I don't know. I would have to think $1,000 probably solves that problem, doesn't it?
Hope
like,
so.
Hey, you guys are all in on this together. Can I just not be in jail for the entire weekend? And here's $1,000.
Charge it to the game. Yeah.
All right. Let's do
By
a
the way,
simple
speaking
one.
of petting crime, I've
was that
had a
the
few
email?
people hit me up.
Was an email. Yeah.
Okay.
I
All right.
have
That was the whole
something
thing.
quick actually because I brought this
That
up.
can take long. Take it long. Obviously, that's the theme of this one.
I brought this up and I realized we never got back to it. And a few people texted me and tweeted me about it. My pickpocketing story.
Oh, you never told it?
Never actually told it on the pod. We just I kind of got cut off and then we were like, hey, we'll do it next pod. We never did it.
Do it now.
So,
I like this better than an email.
it's not super long. Yeah. So this was a couple months ago, I think. Basically, like my in-laws took the kids. My wife and I were like, hey, we're gonna go see a movie. I think that's when we were talking about the Leo movie. What is it? I always One Battle After Another. I always forget the name of it.
Gilbert
Didn't end up
Grape?
seeing that. Saw a different movie. Anyway, at the movie theater, we're walking in. And we bought the tickets online, and I like literally said to my wife, I was like, "Well, this is weird. You just like walk. Anybody could just kind of walk in and sit down. Nobody checks your ticket. That's a little weird. It's downtown West Hartford. It's not like a weird place." Anyway, so we watched the movie. It was great. I get out.
Blueback?
Go in Blueback. Yep. Yeah, that movie theater. Yep, right there, right next to
Shut up.
on the corner there. So I get out. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom before we leave. We had a little dinner thing set up afterwards. We're gonna go back and get changed, but I was wearing like, just I think they were just joggers, right? But with a zipper pocket. I walk into the bathroom. There's a guy standing, not really at the urinal and not at the sink, just kind of in no man's land. And I don't,
right. Who does that?
Speaking of cryptids, like your hair just stands up on the back of your neck, like you just know something's wrong, something's up, something's weird. I just kind of knew something was weird, and he gave me kind of a look.
Yeti?
And I didn't know. Yeah, who knows? Anyway, I didn't know if he was walking or coming, whatever. So I ended up just walking right in front of him. So as I walk in front of him, the sinks are on my right. I go in the middle of him. The urinals are on the left. So I go to pee, and I feel a little tug at the back of my pants. And, my zipper was zipped with the wallet in it. I mean, they're like joggers. So like if they weren't, you could probably easily take it out. Maybe that's why he spotted me.
If you're a zipper king, yeah.
I felt a little tug as I'm basically taking, going to the bathroom.
Got it.
And
were your pants down too low and he was helping?
Definitely not what happened. So I don't think he knew what to do. So he just kind of went to the urinal next to me. And so I looked at him and I was just like, "Are you serious right now, dude?" And he was like, "What?" And he was like kind of being a hardo and like gaslighting me a little bit. And I was like, "You just tried to steal my wallet." And there's other people in the bathroom, by the way, but I didn't know what to do. I'm like, do I make a scene? Like, I think this is, I don't think I'm misreading the situation, but I'm pretty sure this is what happened. And I was like, "You just tried to steal my wallet." He was like, "Oh no, I was just trying to say what's up." And he's like clearly gaslighting me at this point. I was like, "What are you talking about?" He just gave me this weird look. Hard to tell. 20s, I would say.
Not his first time.
I don't think so. And anyway, so I'm sitting there standing. I can't pee because I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, do I tell somebody? Do I leave?
But you
and
can't
go
really
outside?
move.
I can't move. I'm pretty vulnerable right now. not a great spot. He's also probably fake peeing. So I didn't pee. I kind of fake washed my hands and I got out of there. Maddie, my wife, comes out of the thing and I'm like, we got to go. And she's like, "What the heck? What are you talking about? What's going on?" And I just wanted to get out of the movie theater. And so I kind of waited outside to see if he would come outside. And yeah, like a couple minutes later, he just kind of walked outside, went down these stairs and left. And I was like,
Barnes & Noble?
Should I have? No, not the Barnes & Noble, down to the bagel place there. I think it's called Goldberg's. What's up? And I was like, did I kind of pussy out? Like, should I have done something? But I was like, I don't want to get stabbed at a movie theater in West Hartford in the middle of the day on a date with my wife. Like, so I just kind of let it go. But I didn't feel good about it afterwards. I'm like, should I have said something? I'm not going to call the police. I don't know. I didn't know what to do. So I guess that's my life advice is, what should I have done in that situation?
Date night, you don't ruin date night like that. Over that, Now, if you and the boys were going to see one battle after another, I mean, maybe it's just the energy's different.
Testosterone topped up. Yeah,
You're like, you know what? I got
looking
time
to fight
today.
somebody.
Yeah, I don't think that movie's in that level though. I think it's a little too artsy for you to have that kind of adrenaline. Now, if you're going to see Predator, Warrior, if you had seen Warrior and then let that go, then yeah, I'd be like, did you learn anything from Tom Hardy?
Okay.
This is one of those classic things where everyone is going to say, like, oh, if that had happened to me. And it's like, you cannot replicate that feeling of what is going on as it is happening. And it's basically doused in uncertainty because you're pretty sure, but you're not 100% sure.
No cameras
and
in
you
there.
Right. And you have to be 100% sure if you're going to like accuse somebody of stealing the wallet. And also, like, you were right. He was clearly trying to steal your wallet, but walking away and the whole thing. I mean, I think you're a pretty reasonable guy. Did you like your chances against this guy?
He's probably my size, but again, I don't know. Like,
but you were angrier.
I didn't have any weapons on me. I mean, there was no metal detector on the way in. Who knows what could have happened if I like actually tried to do something? You know what I mean? And I'm like, am I going to ruin? I've got 2 kids. Like, I'm not going to, it just isn't where I'm at in life to
the consequences
escalate
are crazy.
the situation.
Yeah.
So I just kind of let it die.
His comeback is hilarious, though. I was like, no, I wasn't taking your wallet. I was just saying what's up. Like, that's how you know he's dead wrong. If that's what
that's
he's
what
saying,
I knew.
Definitely
That's what I
stealing.
I was like, dude, this is like, you were just standing in no man's land. And then as soon as you tug at my wallet, you have to go pee. Okay, dude. But it's like, you're right. Like, in my head, I'm like, am I reading this wrong? And then, days go by. I'm like, there's no way I read that wrong.
No one has better reactions than the person that wasn't in the situation. So
yeah.
Congrats to you. And congrats to us. Little bonus Monday there with the way the taping worked out. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Ceruti. Make sure, I think we still have a few hoodies left on the Barstool merch sale. I think it's still 20% off. A couple of sizes have sold out. The RSLO hoodie from Legends. So just want to get that in there as well. Please subscribe to the pod and our YouTube page. We'll be back with a good 10 minutes on the NBA on Tuesday as well, and a great rest of the week as well. So again, subscribe. The Ryan Russillo Show, part of the Barstool Network.